Chapter 3:15. Allie stood uneasily in the tutor's office. It had been 10 minutes. The tutor didn't say a word. He just looked down at the pile of A4 paper in his hand. It was her completed course design, but she vaguely felt that the tutor would say something to her. As expected, the tutor adjusted his glasses. "Well, Allie, I can see that you've worked very hard on this course design. You've spent a lot of time on it, right?" "Yes, Professor. I've been preparing for 5 weeks." Allie answered quickly. 5 weeks. Well, it's a lot. The tutor nodded, but put down the paper in his hand. He looked at Allie with pity. "But since you have 5 weeks, why can't you give me the rigor in the last part? Do you know that it almost negates all your previous efforts?" She couldn't say it out. It was something she started in a hurry after 4 o'clock in the morning. Because of her attitude, it even affected her own thinking. Even if it was her, when she looked back, she always felt that the last part of the story was simply pieced together randomly. "You went to play last night, right?" The tutor shook his head. "You don't look good. Although you changed your clothes, the makeup on your face was off. Don't you know? There's also the obvious smell of alcohol on him." "Professor, I just need to finish the last part. Can you give me some time?" "I can finish it tomorrow," Allie pleaded. The tutor shook his head. "I'm sorry, Allie. I intended to send the outstanding work in this assignment to the competition. I'm also very happy to give you this opportunity. It's a pity that you've disappointed me." "Professor, I've worked so hard for so long. Can't you give me another chance?" "Half a day. I only need half a day." The tutor still shook his head. "I don't care why you don't have enough time. But the opportunity is equal. The other students have the same time as you. They didn't ask me to extend their time. Allie, I think you need to adjust your state. Go out. I have a class later and need to prepare something." "Professor, wait. Ellie, striving is indeed a very good spirit. But before that, can you please reflect on yourself? If you felt that last night was important to you, why did you choose to play on the last night?" The instructor sighed and stood up. "Of course, I still have some expectations for you. However, I hope that my students are self-disciplined people." Seeing her tutor politely wave his hand and point at the door, Ellie could only lower her head, pick up the document on the table, and leave the room silently. She felt as if she had suddenly lost her center of gravity, walking alone in the school corridor. "Ellie, Ellie, Ellie." Suddenly, someone patted her shoulder. Ellie looked up. It was him, Ryan. Ryan asked with concern, "What's wrong with you? Why is his complexion so bad? Also, have you ever rested?" "I'm fine, but can you leave me alone for a while?" Allie said calmly. "But Ellie, Ryan wanted to say something. Allie said in a low voice, "What happened last night? Can we not talk about it? We are all adults. That's it." She must have been crazy last night to ask Ryan to send her away. Instead of returning to the dormitory immediately, they started to drink in the nearby park. When she woke up, they were already hugging each other. She felt a little uncomfortable in her lower body and naturally understood what happened after she got drunk. Seeing Allie leave, Ryan couldn't help but feel melancholy. "Goodbye, dear." Gloria and Branham enthusiastically gave him an udki, while Allie and Len were much calmer. "Then see you tomorrow." "Well, see you tomorrow." She just nodded. Downstairs of the dormitory. After the two left, Gloria leaned on Allie's shoulder and suddenly said, "I feel that you are too indifferent to Ryan. You don't look like a couple at all. It's been almost a month since the party last time. That day you suddenly told me that you were with Ryan, I thought you were finally enlightened. Not everyone can be as enthusiastic as you." Allie said indifferently, "Len is not Branham. It's not like him to be too enthusiastic, right?" Gloria didn't refute this point of view. "You are right. It was just that." Ryan looked pitiful. "Allie, my good friend, I want to tell you if you are too indifferent to him, your hard-earned love will wither. Let's go upstairs. I want to take a bath." Allie wanted to change this topic, so she said directly, "Oh, you go upstairs first. I forgot to buy something." Allie didn't care about it, dragging her tired body back to the dormitory. She sat down, thinking that her recent grades seemed to have dropped a lot. How could this happen? She scratched her hair, feeling agitated. But soon she took a deep breath to calm herself down and told herself that she couldn't go on like this. Study, Allie said silently and quickly opened the textbook on the desk. But she always felt that something was missing. Notes? The notes I lent to Gloria yesterday. Allie shook her head, and while she was thinking that she was forgetful, she dialed Gloria's phone. What's wrong, dear? Where are the notes I lent to you yesterday? I need to use them. Oh, let me think. It seems to be in the first drawer on the left. Wait, I remember it wrong. It's not in the drawer, but in my school bag. Wait for me. I'll be back soon. Don't open it. I saw it notes. And what did you see? Gloria's voice suddenly became nervous. The notice of being shortlisted for the last course, design competition. Why didn't you tell me? Allie, listen to me. I didn't know that the teacher would put my work. I didn't know that there would be. Besides, it's just a shortlisted. It doesn't mean I will win the prize. Gloria's voice was full of annoyance. Do you think I won't be happy? Allie said with unusual ease. Silly. I'm happy that you can be shortlisted. Come back quickly. Really? Oh, Allie, I know you are my best friend. Wait, I'll buy some beer. Let's celebrate. Gloria seemed to be relieved. You don't know, I can't sleep well these days, and I was worried about how to tell you this. Now it's good. Wait for me. I'll be right back. Okay, dear. Beep. Allie hung up the phone with a smile, and then put the envelope back in the drawer. She was still smiling and sat back on her stool. Suddenly, she swept all the things on the table to the ground, and then screamed, and her hands were inserted into her hair, like a flood breaking out. She cried, Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? She was very nervous, biting her fingers, and walked back and forth quickly. Under the scattered hair, her eyes were still wide open. Suddenly, she turned around and looked at Luaccio with her eyes wide open. I'm Gloria. Allie just wanted to kill me. Kill me. She suddenly approached Luaccio and grasped his arm. She pinched my neck. Look. She pulled open her collar, and there were clear finger marks on her neck. She really pinched me hard. Not only Luaccio, but also Erex and Yuyi, who was accompanying the little girl. Erex had come closer, as if he wanted to study it more carefully. Seeing Erex approaching, she suddenly stepped back in fright. She pointed at Erex and said in fright, It's him. Murder. Murder. Len fell into the pit. When I wanted to pull him up, I found Mrs. Maggie's body. Only he and Mrs. Maggie suddenly disappeared. Then it must be him. It must be him. Are you Branham now? Luaccio suddenly asked. She was stunned and shook her head. No. I fell into the pit, and I found Mrs. Maggie's body. Branham wanted to pull me up. He also said I was an idiot. He was brave, but he was scared by me. Eric squinted. But didn't you say you were Gloria? Gloria. Gloria. She suddenly screamed, putting her hands into her hair, and said in horror, Gloria! Gloria just wanted to kill me. She pinched my neck. Look, look. Didn't you just say Allie wanted to kill you? Allie. Yes, she wanted to kill me, she said stupidly. Suddenly, her expression became painful, and she said in horror, Go, go, Allie, go, Gloria, go. She waved her arms and suddenly shouted, Jump down! Let's jump down from here. Hurry! She suddenly shouted again, No, I'm scared. I can't jump. She suddenly screamed, Ah, it's coming. What's it? Suitcase. Big suitcase. Hand stretched out from inside. Monster. Eyes. I saw the eyes. Arm. 2, no, 3. It swallowed Len's arm. Isn't the suitcase still there, miss? Suitcase. She subconsciously looked towards the dining room, putting down her hands that grabbed her hair, and said to herself, Why is it still here? Why is it still here? She stepped back step by step. Luaccio. Erex, Yi, and the little girl Lena were all looking at her. They suddenly grinned, and their eyes lost their white. They were like mummies. They saw. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Chapter 3:16. Sometimes she laughed, sometimes she was frightened, sometimes her eyes were dull, sometimes her eyes were moving without focus, sometimes 32? She didn't know who she was, and sometimes she hoped she was. Finally, she stopped moving. She was like a statue as she stood there. She even gave people a feeling that she could stand there forever. The little girl looked at her and felt scared instinctively. She tried to grab the skirt of the beautiful elder sister beside her, leaning on her legs. It was so cool that it was almost cold. Erex closed his eyes at this time. He seemed to be listening, showing a satisfied look. What was he listening to? Luaccio wanted to know. Suddenly, he had a feeling that Erex was like a mirror, showing him what he looked like at some time. That's right, it's the appearance that I revealed when I saw the beautiful colors. Luaccio didn't stop his curiosity again, just like when he first walked into the club. He also slowly closed his eyes. He knew that if he wanted to hear it, he would hear it. It's impolite to interrupt others' exclusive enjoyment. That was Erex's voice. Although you are strong enough that I can't stop all this from happening. But I thought you would be the same as the former boss, without much interest in these things. Luaccio slowly opened his eyes, smiling slightly. He looked at the girl who was still standing there, then sat down again, pointing to the seat beside him, saying, "Sit." The little girl suddenly looked up, but she soon felt sleepy, then closed her eyes. Finally, we can have a good talk. But before that, allow me to have a meal first, okay? Go ahead. Erex walked in front of her, who was like a statue. His eyes were emitting a faint purple light. It seemed to be devouring something from the girl's body. This made Luaccio more curious. What he was swallowing wasn't something good for the girl, but something bad for her. Erex was swallowing her dreams and nightmares. Erex is a dream-eating taper. I'm afraid he's the last dream-eating taper. Miss Maid whispered in Boss Luo's ear. Just like Brubov, Luaccio didn't feel strange that Yi could tell because she was just a former customer of the club, so there was nothing strange. Erex suddenly turned around at this time, correcting her. This statement is a bit wrong, Miss Yi. I'm not the last one. I should say the last 1.5. That's because I've been working hard to accumulate transaction fees in order to obtain a companion from your shop. So, since I have this idea, isn't there another half a dream-eating taper in this world? You're a customer as long as you're happy, Luaccio thought. But dream-eating taper, especially to humans' nightmares. A smile slowly appeared on her face. Slowly she even closed her eyes. Her face became peaceful, and then she fell into Erex's arms. After putting the girl on the sofa and letting her sleep, Erex sat down. He sat in front of Luaccio. There was still a look of satisfaction on his face after enjoying the delicious food. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He took out a black envelope from his clothes. That's right. How about this be my transaction fee? I've told this beautiful Miss Maid before I came, and I'll pay for it. Miss Maid took the envelope from Erex's hand and then brought it to her master. Luaccio didn't take it. After glancing at it, he looked at Erex and said, "We didn't do anything." "But we have done it." Erex chuckled. The club's boss is like a mirror, reflecting the evil and desire in his heart wherever he stays. Boss Luaccio didn't take the initiative to do anything. But as long as he's by your side, it's enough to save me some trouble. Luaccio nodded. So you deliberately brought this lady here to borrow my power? Master, Mr. Erex used to send people to us whenever he wanted to eat, but didn't want to do it himself. Of course, Mr. Erex will pay for it every time. Yi explained softly. Why did she feel that this guy was a diner who brought his own ingredients? And then she became the chef who helped him with the ingredients. Erex smiled. This lady is probably just an accident. I met her on the road, and it was about time for me to eat. In fact, I just wanted to send a message to Boss Luaccio. A message? Luaccio gave a start. It was impossible for people around him to send him a message through AirX. Of course, it referred to the identity of Luaccio. That was to say, it was another identity. Who? Your ex, tell me about it. AirX praised. Boss Luaccio is much calmer than I thought. I thought you would be more surprised. Luaccio said indifferently, when I was in Moscow, I met an old customer of the club. He sent me this lakeside villa. Nominally, it's for Yuyi, but Luaccio glanced at Yuyi. I think it's too quiet here. I found that my ex is the one who can safely stay in this place. That old customer sent it to him. Maybe before I came they talked about it. I'm afraid that the gentleman secretly wrote it down, and this place has been prepared for a long time. Luaccio smiled. In my line of work, the premonition is more and more clear. My predecessor had been in this position for a longer time than me, so I think he should have some premonition. If he had a premonition that I would come here, then it wouldn't have been too surprising for him to ask someone to bring me a message. Besides, Luaccio said, since Mr. AirX can come here to send me a message, isn't it because someone told you that I'm here? AirX listened to him quietly and didn't say anything, but he suddenly said, Can we talk alone? The customer's request? Luaccio said indifferently, No. AirX squinted. I just think it's better this way. Boss Luaccio, don't you think it's better to talk with fewer people? Master, I'll prepare the quilt for you to sleep. Miss Maid whispered to Luaccio at this time. No need. Luaccio shook his head. There's nothing you can't listen to. He doesn't really want you to leave here. Alas! AirX sighed at this time, saying helplessly, So I'm most unwilling to deal with the club boss. Because even if we were the guests, there was no secret to the club's boss, even if it's just a little trick. Speaking of this, AirX suddenly moved closer to Luaccio, looking at him up and down carefully, asking, Do you feel bored? You can know as long as you want to know. What does my ex want to say to me? Luaccio didn't answer, but asked. The first is to give this envelope to you. AirX smiled and said, So the real transaction fee I gave is actually the reward for delivering this letter. Boss Luaccio won't mind it, right? Boss, Luo nodded and didn't say anything. This guy didn't even need to give any transaction fee. During the whole process, the two sides didn't even follow the transaction rules set by the club. Second, he said. AirX recalled, as if he was also in doubt. He said slowly, Don't try to peek into the future. Don't peek into the future? After a long silence, Luaccio nodded. He didn't reveal any thoughts about the words AirX sent to his ex. He just took the black envelope in his hand and said indifferently, I'll take this. Besides, Luaccio continued, Where did you meet him? I met him occasionally at the Vatican. AirX shrugged. But I feel that he was waiting for me there. Then he asked me to do this. But I think even if you go to the Vatican, you may not be able to find him. Luaccio really couldn't find his ex directly. Just like the words he found in his ex's room, the price to get all the information was ridiculously high. Any information about his ex's whereabouts was also unimaginable. Apart from Yu Yi, there seemed to be no other way for him to know more about his predecessor. Is he all right? Luaccio felt that his ex might have known the situation and set up a hidden puzzle for him. He couldn't help but have a vague expectation. What would happen when he finally found his ex without the help of the club's intelligence network? He's getting old. AirX closed his eyes. Even though he was standing in front of me and talking to me, his time, every minute, every second was passing by so fast. Old, weak, dying, disappearing. AirX suddenly opened his eyes and smiled. He stood up, put on his hat again, and walked to the side to carry his big leather suitcase. Once again, just like when he first came, he made an exaggerated gesture of thanks and slowly said, Then thank you for your hospitality tonight. I'm going to embark on my journey again. I hope I can buy something from you the next time I see Boss Luaccio. Chapter 317. At the moment when Erex turned around and left, Luaccio moved his line of sight. The so-called 26 dream eating taper was actually a taper, right? Erex's back seemed to have changed a little, becoming bloated, and the pair of hands exposed from the sleeves seemed to have become hooves. Perhaps its nose was elongated like an elephant's trunk, but it was much shorter. Luaccio blinked. Erex's back was like a projection with a new film, returning to its original appearance. Finally, he opened the door and walked out, never looking back. He had already completed his mission, which was to deliver something to his predecessor. He had also unexpectedly obtained a portion of food that could be considered delicious. He should be in a good mood. But if he just left like this, wouldn't it mean leaving a mess here? Were all the previous customers so capricious? Luaccio suddenly asked curiously. If it was a customer, Miss Maid wouldn't deliberately discredit him. She tried to maintain the perspective of a bystander. Mr. Erex is a relatively special one among the customers who have done many transactions. He won't stay in one place for too long, but is always on the road. Luaccio subconsciously looked at the girl lying on the sofa. After her nightmares were eaten, she became so peaceful. Miss Maid suddenly said, however, after the nightmare taper eats the nightmare, it doesn't leave a beautiful dream. Luaccio looked at his maid curiously. It just eats this part of the nightmare, so that the person whose dream is eaten will have the idea of no more similar. Therefore, what the eating taper ate was perhaps the prayer of hoping that hope would not appear again. And for the person whose dream is eaten, her roots are still there. Looking at her master blinking his eyes, Miss Maid tried to explain in more detail. For example, humans plant fruit trees. Every time after the fruit is harvested, the tree itself is still there, and it will still bear fruit. Master, you don't understand? Luaccio shook his head. No, I'm just thinking that you always know a lot. Well, she woke up. However, when she woke up, she did not become clearer because the nightmare had been eaten. She rubbed the space between her eyebrows and looked around blankly. It was still the same living room, the owner of the small villa, the maid, and the sleeping little girl, Lena. Gloria hadn't woken up yet either. She was still sleeping on the other end of the sofa. Did I fall asleep? Allie patted her forehead gently. I think I had a dream, a little. The confusion in her eyes deepened. Luaccio asked, a little bit of what? A little. Allie frowned, but soon shook her head. Nothing. Oh, haven't Branham and the others come back yet? Luaccio nodded. In fact, I haven't seen Mr. Branham and Len appear together. Is that so? She instinctively thought that he meant that Branham and Len hadn't come back yet. As for this strange expression, it was probably because he was not familiar with Russian grammar and occasionally made mistakes. Although she always felt that it was incredible that this young villa owner could have such a pure native accent. Oh, when did I fall asleep? Allie tried hard to recall her previous memory. Oh, did you ask me a question just now? You are Miss Allie? Luaccio suddenly asked. Haven't I introduced myself before? Allie showed a stunned look and shook her head. Your question is really strange. Luaccio smiled. I'm sorry, you can take it as my occupational disease. I always need to talk about some problems with my customers. Well, it's a kind of consulting work. This is because, although many customers are often eager for something, they are unable to clearly grasp what they want. Allie frowned and said, but you can't guarantee that what you're guiding is what the customer really wants. Isn't this too subjective? Bystanders are always clearer. Luaccio whispered. But Miss Allie is right, I can't guarantee this, so the customer is still the one who determines what they want. You don't tell me you are a psychiatrist or something like that. Allie smiled and said, You give me this kind of feeling. Of course, I don't mean to make fun of you or anything else. In fact, it's quite interesting to chat with you. It's not so boring. Thank you. Allie stretched herself. as if she suddenly became more energetic. Like what Branham said, there is always a mysterious color in the East. Are you not ordinary people? It was like a joke for Allie at this time, but it was just a joke to make this place not so boring. Luaccio casually glanced at the window outside the living room, and then looked at Allie. If we are businessmen who can sell anything to customers, do you think we are ordinary people? Anything. Allie gave a start, seeming to think about the scope of the so-called anything. Yes, anything. As long as the customer can imagine and afford it, we will sell it. Of course, as a customer, you can choose not to buy it, because the choice is always on the customer. Allie blinked her eyes, suddenly biting her finger. Well, isn't this statement a bit problematic? For example, the customer does have the choice to not buy it, but, except from you, the customer has no other way to buy what he wants from other sellers. Well, in this case, the customer has no autonomy, right? And if he really needs this kind of thing, he can't choose not to buy it, right? It's like a monopoly. This was the first customer who would discuss this issue with the club's boss, Luo. All the characteristics of a top student? Allie smiled and said, "That's why you guys can't sell everything. This statement is too exaggerated. To be exact, you only sell things that the customer can afford. And if the customer can't afford it, then it doesn't exist. So, the so-called everything can be sold should be a kind of magnified slogan similar to an advertisement. We can sell everything." Luaccio said indifferently, "Although the part that the customer can buy depends on the customer's purchasing power, as the supplier, we don't have the concept of no. At least, that's what I've been in contact with so far." "You say it like it's true." Allie shook her head, casually saying, "If I say that I feel my life is very bad, can you sell me a very good life? How much money do I need to pay for a happy life? Besides, if life can be measured by money, and I have this wealth, why should I buy it from you?" "Because of this." Luaccio smiled. "We don't charge any money." "No money?" Allie gave a start. "Then how do you make a profit?" "Health, sanity, friendship, love." Luaccio said, slowly, "Even a soul, these are all our ways of making a profit." For a moment, Allie felt cold in her body. Her arms, her thighs, the skin that could not be seen under her clothes, even her forehead and cheeks. All of them had a slightly numb feeling. Subconsciously, she had a feeling that this might be true. This feeling lasted for a short time, because a rapid knock on the door suddenly woke her up. Allie stood up in a flurry. "It should be Branham. Who came back? I'll open the door." "Branham." At the moment when the door was opened, Allie suddenly stopped talking. She didn't see Branham, but two men in police uniforms. The two men in police uniforms saw Allie and came forward without saying anything. They pressed Allie to the ground and handcuffed her hands. Chapter 318. Allie's arms were clasped by two police officers, and her mouth was gagged with a cloth strip. A policeman was tightly holding her arms behind her back to prevent her from escaping. Allie's eyes were full of panic and uneasiness as well as tears. Another policeman looked back at the door of the villa and said loudly, "The patient is caught, Madam Sir. You can come in and find your daughter." With that, a figure quickly rushed into the room. It was Mrs. Maggie. Mrs. Maggie was limping around the room. When she saw that her daughter was sleeping on the sofa, she was relieved. She quickly walked to her daughter and held her in her arms. "Mom." Little Lena woke up and rubbed her eyes. Seeing her mother, she shouted happily. At the same time, the little girl also heard a voice from the other side. Her father's voice, Dad. "Lena." Another figure came in from outside. It was the father of the little girl that Luaccio saw on the train. There were many scars on the man's face, as if his skin was cut by something. His forehead was covered with gauze, but there was also blood oozing out. The man was very dirty, as if he had rolled on the ground. He quickly came to the mother and daughter, hugging them both at the same time, and said happily, "Great! That's great. I was so afraid that you were in danger. Great. Mrs. Maggie's husband's eyes were even a little wet. "Don't move," the policeman who was holding Allie shouted at this time. "Do you want to cause more trouble?" Allie struggled more excitedly, but with her mouth gagged, she could only make a whining sound. "Can someone explain it to me?" Luaccio asked softly. Another policeman came up and glanced at him. "Are you the owner of this house?" Luaccio nodded casually. The policeman pointed at the detained Ellie and said, "This woman suddenly went crazy a year ago. She stabbed a few of her classmates with a knife and was caught. Later, she was diagnosed with a serious psychological disorder and violent tendencies. She has escaped from the hospital several times already, and this time is no exception." Luaccio nodded. The policeman looked at the time on his wrist. "Yes, yesterday afternoon, the woman successfully escaped again. She knocked out a driver at a nearby gas station, then stole the driver's car and ran away. After we received the report, we tracked the car's GPS and found this place. At the same time, I also found Mr. Markin." The policeman shrugged and said, "But this Mr. Markin is quite pitiful. When he was relieving himself, he bumped into this woman who had escaped here. Then he was attacked by her and fainted. But as you know, this woman has a serious mental disorder. She doesn't have the ability to act normally. Even if you want to sue her, I'm afraid it'll end in nothing. He's fine as long as he's fine." Mr. Markin shook his head. He glanced at Ellie and sighed. "This girl is quite pitiful. I won't pursue the matter." "Oh, thank you for your generosity, sir." The police officer immediately smiled. He had to smile. If he didn't pursue the matter, it would reduce his workload. How could he not be happy? Markin didn't say anything. He just combed his daughter's hair lovingly, as if he was afraid that she would be frightened. Mrs. Maggie looked around and asked curiously, "By the way, where's Mr. Arax? When I went out with him to find my husband, I accidentally fell into a pit and twisted my foot. Fortunately, I met the 2 police officers who tracked us here. We chatted for a while and found out that Miss Ellie is a patient." The 2 police officers were afraid that Ellie would run away if they broke in, so they asked Arax to come back first to check the situation, but they didn't receive any news for a long time. Therefore, they had to bring the Markin couple back quietly. The 2 police officers leaned against the window of the villa and peeped for a while. They saw that Ellie was talking with the young owner of the house. She looked quite calm, so they directly knocked on the door to arrest her. "Officer, my wife and I are on vacation this time. We brought our daughter back to visit her grandmother. So I don't want to waste time." Markin sighed. "Besides, I don't want to pursue the matter. After all, she's just a patient. So we can skip the injury examination, right? Can I make a statement here? I don't want to go to the police station. I'm afraid that I'll waste a day of my vacation." The police considered for a while and said, "Okay, but you have to write a letter of guarantee that you're willing to do this. We don't want you to blame us for being irresponsible if you have any problems in the future, because you're willing to do this, okay?" Markin thought for a while and nodded slightly. "Then let's start the detailed statement." The police officer took out a pen and paper and a recording pen. "You can tell us what happened again." Markin said slowly. It was almost sunset. "I was in the forest beside the road and was about to... Oh, I suddenly saw a shadow flash by. I was startled at that time, thinking that I had bumped into something, but I found that it was a woman. I felt strange at that time because she was walking alone as if she had something on her mind. In short, it was a very bad state. I tried to call her twice, but she didn't respond, so I walked forward. But I didn't expect..." Markin touched the wound on his forehead. "She suddenly pounced on me like a madwoman. In the scuffle, she hit me here with a stone, and then I lost consciousness." The police nodded and recorded it carefully. "Officer, can't you remove the cloth from Miss Ellie's face? I think she wants to say something." Luaccio looked at Allie at this time. The police officer said casually, "No need. What if she bites her tongue?" The mental hospital said that she had tried to commit suicide several times. Besides, the words of mental patients have no legal effect. There was nothing wrong with the police officer's statement. Suddenly, Ellie broke free from the hands of the other police officer who was holding her down. Her mouth was gagged, so she could only make a low but unusually powerful groan. Her hands were locked behind her back, but she used her body crazily, seemingly trying to hit the door. She probably wanted to say something, but no one knew what she wanted to say. The cloth in her mouth had blocked her from communicating with others. However, since she couldn't move freely, she was quickly pressed to the ground by the two police officers. Allie twisted her body crazily on the ground. She raised her head so hard that her teeth clenched the cloth in her mouth. Her eyeballs were about to burst out from her eye sockets. Her crazy struggle made her cheeks full of blood. She just stared at Luaccio. Her eyes were full of endless pleading. She kept her eyes open. Her body was dragged by the two police officers, but she still kept her eyes open without blinking until she was dragged out of the villa's door. "The statement is done, Mr. Markin. I hope you can keep your phone turned on. We'll contact you if there's anything." One of the police officers turned around and said, "We're taking a patient back now, and we're also returning this lost car to the owner. Have a good holiday, Mr. Markin." When Allie was pushed onto the police car, her head suddenly hit the window glass, as if she wanted to break through the glass and get out of it. She still kept her eyes open until the car was far away and she couldn't see it anymore. Then Miss Maid gently closed the door. On the lawn outside, there was only a faint light in the house, and a little dark green could be seen. "I didn't expect to meet you here." After a long while, Markin, Mrs. Maggie's husband, said something and broke the silence. He smiled and said, "Originally, we were supposed to cross this road directly. I didn't expect to stop midway." Mrs. Maggie glanced at the wounds on her husband's body and then hurriedly said, "Excuse me, is there a first aid kit here? I think my husband needs to clean these wounds, and I'm afraid we can only stay here tonight. We're fine, but—" She glanced at her daughter. Such a small child. She was afraid that she was frightened. As a mother, she needed a quiet and comfortable environment to comfort her daughter. "I'll find the first aid kit." Yuyi smiled and walked away. At this time, Markin found that the owner of this small villa seemed to be looking at him all the time. There was something on his face that he couldn't describe. This caused him to become nervous all of a sudden. When he was looked at by this kind of indescribably strange gaze and faintly discernible smile, a strange kind of uneasiness surfaced in his heart. "Excuse me, can I use the bathroom here?" Markin pulled his collar. "I think I want to clean myself." Luaccio smiled, pointing at the bathroom. "Over there. I'll ask someone to prepare a towel for you, sir." Markin nodded. He didn't want to stay in front of this young Oriental man for a while. He didn't know why, but he lowered his head and quickly walked to the bathroom. "Maggie, you come and clean yourself and bring Lena here." He turned back and said. When there was only Luaccio in the living room, he sat down again and opened the black envelope left by Erex. From inside, Luaccio took out a palm-sized black card. The horn of the black card stood upright in Luaccio's palm. This card slowly rotated in his palm. Looking at it, Luaccio was lost in thought. Suddenly, Boss Luo's eyes became sharp. The black coating on the black card was completely peeled off in a flash, and it turned into a gold and silver card that emitted a faint gold and silver color. The second one. The police car in front suddenly stopped, and the police officer driving the stolen car had to stop as well. The police officer in front pulled Allie out of the back seat. The police officer in the back also got off the car and walked forward. This was a quiet place. Both ends of the road were like cliffs swallowed by darkness with no end in sight. However, they still looked at their surroundings. The police officer in front sneered and looked at his partner. His partner also nodded. The two ignored the girl's struggle and dragged her into the woods. They chained her hands to a tree trunk. One of them began to take off his pants, and the other began to undress Allie. But he stopped halfway. Wait, what? I've taken off my pants, and you want me to stop? Do you want to do it first? The other one was dissatisfied. No. Look at her, isn't she a bit strange? Since just now. To be exact, since she was locked on the tree trunk, this girl didn't make any movement. She just opened her eyes wide without blinking, as if she couldn't blink. I keep feeling that something is wrong. The one who stopped frowned. This woman's eyes are making me feel uncomfortable. The one who had taken off his pants directly wrapped his pants around Allie's eyes and patted her face, grinning. Isn't this good? Let's finish it quickly, then clean her body and take her back. Don't worry, she's just a psychopath. No matter what she says, no one will believe it. Saying this, he leaned on Allie's body and began to suck her neck. He had become excited. He had touched the place where he was about to penetrate and felt more excited. All of a sudden, he felt an unprecedented pain coming from his ear. Ah! He screamed once and then kept screaming. He painfully covered his right ear. His entire earlobe had been bitten off, and half of his face was covered in blood. Ah! The cloth stuffed in the girl's mouth had been spat out, and her mouth was already stained with blood. She was chewing a broken ear. The handcuffs that locked her were suddenly broken, and the girl tore off the pants on her face, revealing her scarlet eyes. Her eye sockets were cracking. Scarlet eyes, and her mouth was also cracking. Monster. They had been scared to death and collapsed on the ground, kicking their legs in horror, trying to retreat. But she suddenly rushed over and directly inserted her hands into one of their chests, tearing it open. The remaining police officer was too terrified. He could barely think. He didn't even notice that on the back of the girl who had suddenly turned into a monster, there was an ancient parchment scroll that had been opened. Perhaps he couldn't see it at all, because this was not something he could see. Chapter 319. A voice whispered in her ear, "Kill her." In the early morning, Allie suddenly felt chill, so she woke up. It was Gloria who opened the window of the dormitory and let the cold wind in. At this time, Gloria took a piece of clothing and put it on Ellie. She said in disbelief, "God, you stayed up all night." Allie subconsciously tightened her grip on the clothes draped over her body. She suddenly asked, Did you hear anything?" "Did I? What sound?" Gloria was astonished. Allie was stunned and shook her head. She subconsciously looked at the mirror next to her. She looked so haggard in the mirror. Then she looked at Gloria. She was bright and charming. "Allie, are you not feeling well?" Gloria asked worriedly, "Tell me what's wrong." No. Allie wanted to shake her head. In fact, she shook her head. "Is there something on your mind?" Gloria pressed Allie's shoulder and lowered her head. "Is it about your feelings? Is it about Ryan? You can tell me. We are good friends." "Good friends?" Allie murmured and looked at herself and Gloria in the mirror. When their faces were close to each other, why did Gloria's face become so strange? She knew that there was nothing abnormal about Gloria, but why was the Gloria she saw in the mirror so terrifying? Like a monster? "Gloria, if one day I hurt you, what will you do?" Allie suddenly asked. Gloria shrugged and said confidently, "Why would you hurt me? There is a monster in my heart." She couldn't tell which side was the truth between reality and fantasy. Where was this place? Narrow, 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 dark. When she woke up in the middle of the night, she found herself in such a place. They said this was a place for the mental hospital to live. Oh, the wall was covered with soft cotton bags. Allie sat up and looked at her clothes confusedly. Why was it a bondage suit? Oh, this was a mental hospital. She couldn't remember how long she had lived here. When did she live here? He couldn't remember. Even if she occasionally recalled some of the things that had happened before, she couldn't tell whether it was her own dream, her imagination, or something that had really happened. Occasionally, the man who called himself a doctor would talk to her. The man said that there was a monster in everyone's heart. Monsters were not scary, but when you ran away from them, they would become stronger and stronger. Finally, one day, it will completely devour you. Is that so? When it is quiet, Allie looks up at the small iron window. Is it like this? Right, what is this place? Gloria? Len? Branham? Where are you? Inside the cramped room, Allie was curled up in a corner. She saw monsters with Len's appearance, Branham's appearance, and Gloria's appearance, surrounding her one after another. Go away. Everyone had a monster in their heart. The shadows of the trees outside the car window were retreating quickly. It was too dark, in fact, they could only see a continuous piece of black cloth. This is the car? Isn't it that cramped place? Allie quietly leaned against the window, feeling that her life was like the sewage in the sewer, too chaotic and too terrible. She didn't even know why she was in this car. It should be a police car. After all, the driver wore a police uniform. Is there a monster in everyone's heart? It's so ugly. When she was tied to the tree trunk, Allie faintly thought she knew what the two policemen wanted to do to her. But is this reality? Or is it just a nightmare? Once again, she could not tell whether this was just her imagination or if she was really in such an environment. Would she really be in such an environment? Shouldn't she be in that cramped room? The touch was so real. It's really too ugly. Will it feel better if I cover my eyes? I hate this feeling. Everyone has a monster in their heart, an incomparably ugly monster. Please devour me. I don't want to be unable to distinguish between what is real and what is fake anymore. Let the monster devour me. She was so calm that she couldn't even feel the movements of the policemen who were messing with her body, but she was shouting in her heart. Hysterical. A portion of health, a portion of rationality, a portion of friendship, a portion of love, and even a portion of a soul. These are all ways for us to profit. She seemed to have heard such words before, and they existed in her mind. Yes, she had met a strange guy and had a strange conversation with him. But was it also real? But no matter whether it was real or not, at this moment, get off my body. Go away. Don't touch me. There was a monster in everyone's heart. It was so ugly, too ugly. Please let me become a monster too. In this way, I don't need to be confused about what is real and what is not. Right? Just like the heartless monster in the story, the monster came out from the heart, so it's fine to not have a heart. She tasted the taste of blood. She saw the two policemen who were so frightened that they almost collapsed. Oh, was this scene real? But it didn't matter, because she had already become a monster. The warm blood flowed on her palm like a gurgling stream and slid down her arm. She slowly pressed her bloody palm on the parchment scroll that was slowly unfolding in front of her. The owner of this villa is really good. Looking at his wife who had coaxed his daughter to sleep, Markin relaxed and walked over. He held his wife's shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for your hard work." Mrs. Maggie made a gesture of silence and then left the room with her husband. Mrs. Maggie seemed to feel a little cold. She hugged her arms and whispered, "Let's set off at dawn. I always feel a little uncomfortable here." Markin nodded. "I also have the same feeling. No matter what, to build a villa in this place. Well, it's too weird for young people. How's your injury?" Mrs. Maggie reached out and touched the wound on her husband's forehead. She blamed. "Why didn't you shout when you were attacked? If I had heard it, you wouldn't have been knocked out and thrown into the pit." Markin shrugged. "In that case, I had to consider Lena's safety, didn't I? Who knows if she had any accomplices? What if you also got off the car, leaving Lena alone in the car? That kind of environment." "You're right." Mrs. Maggie nodded helplessly. "Well, let's not talk about it. You also go to rest." "I want to accompany Lena tonight." Mrs. Maggie's face suddenly changed, as if she was frightened by something. She leaned back against the wall. "What's wrong?" Markin was startled by his wife's strange behavior and quickly asked. Mrs. Maggie's arm was a little bit trembling. She pointed at the corridor window and said in surprise, "Just now, did something pass by?" Markin turned his head and looked over. It was dark outside the window, nothing. "Are you too tired and saw wrongly?" Maybe it's just the shadow of the leaves. Maybe. Mrs. Maggie rubbed her eyebrows and then gently pushed her husband. You go to rest. You still need to drive tomorrow. Seeing Mrs. Maggie enter the room to accompany his daughter to sleep, Markin twisted his stiff neck and planned to go back to his room. His room was just next door. After closing the door, Markin frowned as he gritted his teeth and sucked in a breath of cold air. Then he slowly walked to the front of the mirror and opened his eyes. After that, he pulled down his pants a bit. This damn woman. A few inches below his abdomen, there were several deep red scars, as if they were scratched by some claws. Markin lowered his head and gently touched the scars with his fingers, observing their depth. He didn't notice in the mirror. Chapter 320. Thank you for your guidance, and of course my best friend, Allie. She gave me a lot of suggestions. I also want to thank her. In the classroom, Gloria stood up under the enthusiastic applause. Of course, it was also under the tutor's call. The first prize of the course design award, after more than 2 months of selection, finally came out. Allie silently watched Gloria walk to the podium, taking the honor from the tutor's hand, and then revealed a smile. But she lowered her head. She held a pen, scratching the chair again and again. She didn't know how many times she repeated it, and the scratches were deep. Allie suddenly closed her eyes, as if she was in another world. But in this world's classroom, the tutor said, "Congratulations, Ellie. Come up. Dear Allie, I think you won't be stingy to share the joy with everyone." And she, as expected, stood up slowly and walked to the podium under the gaze of many people. She looked at Gloria, smiling. "First of all, I want to thank my good friend who has been accompanying me day after day." Allie felt more and more clearly that there seemed to be another her in her body. She was selfish, jealous, easily angry, and always dissatisfied with herself. She often said to Allie, "What kind of friend are you? Do you think Gloria is really kind? She just looks for superiority from you, because she is better than you in all aspects. It's not like that." She often said to Allie, "Look, she has gained honor, gained love, and was born rich, even she is smart. You have to try your best to catch up with the things she can do easily. As long as she exists, you will always be an ornament, a foil to her excellence." No, it's not like that. So she said again, "Isn't it? At the beginning, do you think Branham is really interested in you? Wake up. He's only interested in Gloria. He's talking to you because he wants to know more about Gloria. He wants to know more about Gloria. You know this, but you still fantasize that he likes you. Even his questions are obviously more about Gloria, but you turn a blind eye to it. It's not like that, it's not like that." She then mocked. "Why do you stay with Len? Looking for comfort? Because Len's family is actually better than Branham's? Because Len's grades are always better than Branham's? Because he looks like a dull person, but in addition, he has more advantages than Branham's? Because you are eager to prove that you have a better boyfriend than Gloria? Because you are in a bad mood and sleep with Len, so you just give up on yourself? It's not like that." Finally, she sneered, "Allie, you are too ugly. You're really too ugly." She gasped for air, and the other her inside her body seemed to have disappeared. "I can't hear those unpleasant sounds anymore. But why? But why? Did I stab Gloria in the stomach with a knife?" Crimson blood spread out from her blue and white dress. Alice instinctively pulled out the knife in her hand. She saw Gloria clutching her abdomen and looking at her in disbelief. "It's not like that." She blankly looked at Len and Branham beside her, who showed an unbelievable look at the same time. She looked at the shocked look of them rushing over together. "It's not like that. It's not like that." She screamed with a hoarse voice. A rapid, frightened, and trembling scream was heard. Markin felt something wrong and subconsciously moved his eyes from the wound on his lower abdomen to the mirror. He turned around in an instant. A wave of cold air rose from the soles of his feet and rushed to his scalp like a hot knife through butter. Waves of numbness began to spread from the top of his head to the rest of his body. Cheeks, neck, chest, and arms. It's you. Even though her eyes were cracked open, revealing her scarlet eyeballs, and even though her mouth was cracked open, revealing her beast-like, sharp teeth, he could still recognize her as the mental patient, Ellie, whom he had met by the forest beside the highway. Why did she become like this? She was like a banshee. No, she was simply a monster. What do you want to do? Markin was so frightened that he instinctively stepped back and touched the wall of the room. There was no way back. Don't come over. Don't. Markin was so frightened that he accidentally bit his tongue. But she came closer and directly pressed in front of Markin. As the horror approached, Markin crazily stretched out his hands to choke the neck of the banshee, who almost made him collapse. He succeeded in choking the banshee's neck and pushed her to the ground angrily. Markin sat on the banshee's body, still choking her. His hair was scattered, and he was sweating profusely. His eyes were wide open and ferocious. Why did you come back? I won't blame you any more. I really won't blame you any more. Why did you come back? Revenge me? But I was just impulsive. I was really impulsive. You've already knocked me out. What else do you want to do to me? Why don't you be taken away? Why don't you go back to the mental hospital? Why do you care about an impulsive person? You crazy woman. Crazy woman. You, what are you laughing at? Markin felt colder in his body, and his body stiffened uncontrollably, as if something was pulling his body away, looking at the smile on this horrible face. What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at? Laughing. Squeak? Markin heard a squeak. That was the sound of the door opening, the sound of the door being unoiled for a long time. He turned his head subconsciously and saw his wife, Maggie. I heard something, Mrs. Maggie said, subconsciously. She couldn't see the face of the woman who was pinned down by her husband, but she could recognize the clothes. But looking at this scene, it was enough to make her feel confused, and what Markin said just now was also enough. Impulsive. What kind of impulsive was it? Mrs. Maggie's mind was almost occupied by this question. She didn't even think about why the patient who should be taken back would appear here again. Maggie, listen to me. This woman is a monster. Markin said hurriedly, Come here. Help me. What is impulsive? Unexpectedly, Mrs. Maggie blurted out such a question as if she was distracted. You must have heard it wrong. Come here. I can't hold her down. She's a monster. Why don't you investigate it? Why? Mrs. Maggie looked at Markin with surprise and a strange look. I know your character. You won't let yourself suffer losses. Even if you can't investigate the girl's responsibility, you can still get financial compensation from her family. But you didn't even ask if she has a family. It's abnormal. What did you do to this girl? Nothing. Come here, help me. Markin shouted. This woman is a monster. She will hurt us. Come here. You're the monster. Mrs. Maggie endured the agitated heartache. You're the monster. I saw you. What a monster. You're the one who wants to kill people. I didn't expect my husband to be such a person. You disappoint me, Markin. The girl was pressed to the ground, and Markin's hands were still strangling her neck. Who wanted to kill who? Stop. Markin. Mrs. Maggie's eyes were red. Don't hurt this child again. Markin looked at his wife's expression in a daze. Suddenly, he understood why this female monster showed that kind of smile just now. That was ridicule. Let her go. You'll really kill her like this. You're committing a crime. Do you know? Markin. Wake up. Mrs. Maggie took a deep breath. Although I don't know how the girl escaped back, I believe that the 2 police officers shouldn't have gone far. Markin, I don't want to be a witness to testify against you. Stop, okay? Think about Lena. Stop, okay? Lena. Yes, Lena. No. He was absent-minded for a moment, but soon became ferocious. The girl, the female monster's ridicule, seemed to appear in front of his eyes again. His wife saw his true face, and it was more like he was being played with. The image of a good husband all along, just at this moment, was gone. "Listen." Markin turned back, gasping and widening his eyes. "I don't care if you're a psycho or a monster. You've ruined me, do you know that? You've ruined my family. Do you know that? I won't keep you, won't." In the room, evil seemed to be magnified to the limit. It was like a whirlpool, rapidly and violently, pushing people into the center of the whirlpool. "You shouldn't have come back." "Ah!" Markin's hands exerted strength at the same time. He promised that this was all his strength. "Markin, stop." Mrs. Maggie saw that her husband was completely out of control. At this time, she could only run over in a panic and directly grabbed his arm, trying to stop all this from happening. Suddenly, Markin stopped, and a mouthful of pus and blood spurted out from his mouth. The female monster's arm unknowingly had penetrated Markin's chest. The hand that was dyed red was like a claw that was slowly waving its fingers in the air. "Ah!" Mrs. Maggie screamed and fell to the ground in fear. The arm that penetrated her husband's body swung out at this time, and at the same time Markin's body was thrown out and rolled to the corner. Only then did she see the girl's appearance clearly. Looking at the pool of blood flowing out from Markin's body in the corner, Mrs. Maggie wailed in pain. The female monster was walking towards her step by step. "No." Mrs. Maggie shook her head helplessly, curling up her body, and begged, "Don't come over." "Aha!" "Mom, what are you doing?" The little girl was standing in front of the door. She hugged the pillow, and her clean pajamas were a little wrinkled because she had gone to bed earlier. The little girl, Lena, rubbed her eyes as if she hadn't woken up yet, but also looked at the scene in front of her. Suddenly, the female monster turned her body and walked towards the little girl. Lena seemed to be stunned. She looked at this ferocious-looking female monster and hugged her pillow tightly. She stood motionless in the same place. "No, no, no." Mrs. Maggie immediately scrambled to her feet and hugged the monster's waist with both hands. "No, don't hurt my daughter. No." But the female monster's strength was too great. No matter how she pulled and fought, there was no way to stop the female monster's steps. The female monster suddenly waved her arm and swept Mrs. Maggie backward. Mrs. Maggie flew out and fell at the end of the room. Chapter 321. The girl walked back and forth in the small room. The room was really small, so the 16-year-old girl had to turn around and walk to the other side of the room after 3 steps. She repeated the process. How long has she been like this? Through the small glass window on the door, Gloria covered her mouth and turned her head. She couldn't bear to continue watching the scene. Several weeks. Allie's condition seems to be getting worse, so I have to apply for this room for her. Gloria's face was still a little pale because she was stabbed in the abdomen not long after she was discharged from the hospital, so she had to stay in the hospital for a long time. Why did this happen? Gloria leaned on Branham's shoulder, sobbing softly. Branham sighed, touching his arm, which still had some lingering pain. The doctor said that it was cut into the tendons and bones. Although it was connected, it was impossible for him to be as flexible as before. "I have told you, you shouldn't come." Gloria just sobbed softly. The doctor had seen too many situations like this, so he said calmly the patient should be in a state of long-term stress. I've learned that her family doesn't seem to be well off. In addition, from the conversation, I found that Miss Allie has a very serious jealousy, but at the same time, she also has a considerable degree of obedience. She has been in the contradiction of self-persuasion, obedience, and resistance. The doctor shook his head and said, "You should know what will happen once the nerves are stretched to the limit. It's all my fault. I didn't notice it." Gloria blamed herself and stared blankly at Ellie in the room. Once, she asked me what I would do if she hurt me one day. At that time, if I had noticed, the doctor sighed. Everyone has something in their heart that they don't want others to know. "Miss Gloria, If this matter becomes your guilt, I'm afraid it's not good for you. Miss Allie's problem didn't form in 1 or 2 days. Doctor, can Allie, can she recover? Len looked at the doctor and asked seriously. I can't answer you. The doctor shook his head. Medication and psychotherapy can help control the patient's condition, but whether it will get better or not still depends on her. The doctor calmly pointed at his heart. In my opinion, the patient doesn't have any mental problems. It's just that there's a person living here that can't let go of. The three of them looked at the figure in the room thoughtfully. Gloria stared blankly. The first time I met Ellie was the first day I moved into her house. I still remember that day she was sitting outside reading a book, wearing a dress. Now that I think about it, she was very quiet back then. It seems that she hasn't changed all these years. Branham pressed Gloria's shoulders from behind and comforted her. Gloria smiled with a complicated expression. At first, she didn't want to be friends with me. Whenever I called her from the other side of the fence, she would run straight back into the house. One day, Gloria recalled, one day she suddenly walked to the fence and took the initiative to call me for the first time. She asked me if I really intended to make friends with her. If so, she would share half of the cookies with me, but I didn't control my mouth. Branham knew that Gloria didn't blame him, but she was recalling the memorable memories of her childhood. The next day, I took some candies from home and shared half of them with her. We were like this when we were young. We didn't want to care about anything. We wanted to share everything with each other. Gloria whispered, that's it. More than 10 years have passed. We have grown up and are not like before. Looking at Allie in the room, Gloria asked softly, Branham, what do you think she is thinking? Len thought for a while and said uncertainly, maybe it's a world that she wants. Will there be us? Probably. Allie in the room suddenly stopped moving and just looked up at the small iron window leading to the outside. No one knew what she was thinking. Mrs. Maggie was pleading weakly. She couldn't move and was swept away and heavily fell to the ground. She could only watch as this horrible thing reached its hand out to her daughter. She shook her head in grief, as if she couldn't breathe. She didn't know whether her daughter was scared, but this strange thing's body completely blocked her daughter's appearance. When her palm fell on Lena's face, Lena instinctively stepped back, but she was quickly pressed by the other's hand on her shoulder. Lena raised her head, looking at the cracked eyes and the cracked mouth. She couldn't recognize that this was the big sister who had finished the story for her. The little girl asked nervously, Are you Mr. Monster? But why are you a woman? She, who had turned into a monster, suddenly lowered her head and opened her eyes wider, almost touching Lena's forehead. Are you going to eat, Lena? The little girl was shocked, holding her pillow tightly, and was about to cry, Are you going to eat Lena's heart? She uttered an unknown sound from her throat. Hiss! Lena, run! Quick! Behind her, Mrs. Maggie screamed in horror. She began to hold Lena's cheeks with both hands, and suddenly opened her mouth wide. Her mouth had bitten 2 policemen's bodies and was stained with Markin's blood, so it was bloody red. Lena closed her eyes at once and lowered her head. Can you not eat Lena's heart? Lena can give you half of it. Lena doesn't want to lose her heart. Lena doesn't want Mom and Dad to lose sight of Lena. Can I give you half of it? Can I? Her closed eyes slowly opened, and Lena found that this Mr. Monster, Sister Monster, didn't seem to eat her. But the moment she opened her eyes, the other's horrible eyes were still looking at her. Lena was frightened again, but this time she didn't close her eyes again. The little girl didn't know what this thing was. She just naively thought that this was the Mr. Monster who came out of the story, the one who gave his heart to the little girl in the story and became the heartless Mr. Monster. Why did it become like a sister? Lena didn't understand this. Mom said that although Mr. Monster is ugly, it is very kind. Mr. Monster will pick a lot of delicious fruits for the little girl to eat. Can't you remember? Little Lena hugged her pillow tighter. But Lena can only give you half of it. More is okay, but you can't take all of it away. Otherwise, Lena won't know where to go if she loses her heart. Okay. Okay. She suddenly pushed Lena away, then lowered her head, looked at her hands, and looked at her own appearance in the mirror next to her. Suddenly, she stopped moving. Lena looked at her in surprise, only to see this strange monster sister suddenly move and walk past her. Just like that, she walked away step by step. She went down the stairs. Lena! Lena! Mrs. Maggie crawled over from the ground. After a while, she finally crawled to her daughter's side and hugged her excitedly. She touched her daughter's face with trembling hands and kept looking at her daughter's face. Lena! Are you all right? Did you hurt yourself in any way? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Mom is here. Mom is here. Lena is fine. Lena patted her mother's head and then said, Mom, will that Mr. Monster come back? I just saw Mr. Monster cry. So pitiful. Mrs. Maggie looked back involuntarily. Markin was still lying in the corner, in a pool of blood, and probably would never move again. Pitiful? Who is more pitiful? Mrs. Maggie suddenly thought no one is more pitiful than the other. She went downstairs and came to the living room of this small villa. She subconsciously walked to the terrace outside the living room and kept looking at the dark lake. Do you want to sit? Chapter 3:22. On the balcony, the water was cold, the wind was cool, and the moon was bright. Luaccio, accompanied by a maid, seemed to have been sitting here for a long time. 16. The beer in the cup on the small tea table was also half drunk. A slightly bitter taste was swirling in Luaccio's mouth. He looked at Ellie as if he was responding to the way she looked at him when she was dragged away by 2 police officers not long ago. Am I very ugly now? It sounded like a burning vocal, cords vibrating after being stabbed in the throat with a poker. Allie also looked at this mysterious young man and asked again, Am I ugly now? Luaccio thought seriously for a while, saying, A few months ago I met an even uglier one. Boss Luo recalled the scene when he saw the little butterfly monster for the first time. There were pustules all over her body, and some of her breasts had been broken. Believe me, that look was at least much more horrible than you are now, of course, from a human's point of view. Really? Allie didn't look at Luaccio anymore. She looked at the lake, saying quietly, I can't imagine it. I'm afraid it will appear in front of me. I don't know which side is real. I just saw myself in the mirror. I don't know whether the one in the mirror is real or not. But after a long silence, Allie finally said softly, But it's really ugly. It's too ugly, beyond my imagination. It's really. Lowering her head, Ellie leaned against the wooden plank on the edge of the balcony. She could vaguely see her reflection in the lake with the help of the light from the house. She looked at her own reflection. It's so ugly. Can you describe it? Luaccio stood up, walking to Allie's side, looking at the reflection in the lake with her. Allie stretched out her hand, pointing at the eyes in the reflection. This is my jealousy. You see, it cracked and became ferocious. I know that Gloria is really my good friend. She never thought of getting anything from me. But I can't help but be jealous of her. Allie pointed at the mouth of the horrible face in the reflection. This is my deception. You see, it also cracked. It can't be fixed. I don't like Ryan, but I haven't told him. I have been enjoying his kindness to me. I know Gloria very well, but I always have a smile on my face. So her finger turned a circle, encircling the whole reflection. After a while, she said softly, This is me, the jealous, the dishonest me, the real me. After that, Allie didn't say anything. Luaccio accompanied her. They stood like that for a long time. Suddenly, Allie said softly, Can I ask you one last thing? I have all my remaining. Of course. We never refuse a guest's request. Luaccio smiled. I'm so terrible. Allie smiled bitterly. Her cracked lips made such a bitter smile look more horrible. I hurt too many people, even myself. I can't turn back. But at least... She stopped talking, silent. Her cracked eye sockets were ferocious, but there seemed to be a soft light moving. But at least the little guy who is willing to give me half of his heart can live well. You think of yourself as her? I see. Luaccio nodded slightly. Thank you. Ali turned around, looking at Luaccio. Her cracked eyes and lips slowly healed. When she smiled, she seemed to have returned to the past. Ali closed her eyes and let her body fall freely into the lake. Just like that, she slowly sank into the dark and bottomless lake. The calm surface of the lake was still calm, but there was a faint pink glow. After a flash, a ball of light slowly emerged from the lake and finally fell into Luaccio's palm. At this time, the little girl Lena was still hugging her pillow. Nobody knew when she came downstairs. Her face was a little pale, walking barefoot on the ground with the pillow. Her pajamas seemed to be more wrinkled. She walked to Luaccio and Yuye's side, saying pitifully, "Big brother, big sister, my mother is missing. My father is also missing. Do you know where they are?" Luaccio put away the ball of light in his hand, reaching out to grab little Lena's hand, saying softly, "I'll take you back to your mother." Really? Luaccio didn't say anything, holding Lena's hand, and went out of the door. Several kilometers away, on the road by the lake, an ambulance and a police car were parked. In front of these 3 cars, there were 3 different cars. They crashed into each other, and blood flowed all around them. Several paramedics were busy moving the bodies of 2 police officers out of one of the 3 police cars that had collided with each other. One of the paramedics shook his head, looking at the 2 policemen who had been moved out. No breath, confirmed dead. Later, they carried out a girl who was still wearing a detention uniform from a private car and laid her flat on the ground. Then, they carried out the bodies of a couple and a little girl from another private car. The 2 policemen were dead, and the doctor who came with the ambulance was giving first aid to the girl in detention uniform and another family of 3. "Doctor," this gentleman's heart stopped. A nurse said helplessly at this time. "Doctor, this girl's heart also stopped. This lady is breathing." Another nurse said quickly at this time. The doctor didn't have much joy because the little life in his hand still didn't get better. Her injury was too serious. "Don't give up. You still have relatives. Don't give up." The doctor shouted loudly and kept performing CPR on the little girl. He squeezed the little girl's chest hard and regularly, saying quickly, "Listen, child. Wake up. I know you are strong enough. Child, listen to me. You still have to go to school. You still have to meet many friends. You still have a complete life waiting for you. Don't stop here. Child, breathe, 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 breathe." On the side of the road, Erex was closing his eyes, showing an extremely intoxicated expression. Suddenly, a voice came from behind him. "It seems that Mr. Erex has finished his dinner, hasn't he? It seems that Boss Luaccio also made a good business, right?" When he turned back, he saw Luaccio. Boss Luo was holding a little girl. But Luaccio didn't look at him, just looking at the scene of the accident. Erex smiled embarrassedly. He took off his hat and said in a humble tone, "Believe me, it's really just an accident." At this fork, Miss Ellie and Mr. Markin's car collided with each other, and the police car behind them wasn't spared either. Erex narrowed his eyes and said, "Your humble servant called the ambulance at the first moment. But as you can see, these people's souls have left their bodies." "It's all right," Luaccio said indifferently. Luaccio lowered his head, patting little Lena's shoulder, pointing to the front, and said softly, "It's time to go back. Your mother is waiting for you." "Big brother, where is Mr. Monster?" Little Lena walked 2 steps forward, and suddenly turned back and asked. Luaccio said softly, "There is no monster. Monsters are just things that we make up for ourselves. Go back or it will be late." Little Lena nodded and gradually walked to him. "Breathe, breathe, 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 breathe. Oxygen. Nurse. Oxygen. Great. That's great. She's finally saved." Looking at a group of medical staff dancing and cheering for saving a life, Erex put on his hat again. He looked at Luaccio, Then goodbye, Boss Luaccio. He gradually disappeared into the woods behind him, and his figure gradually disappeared in the darkness. He always carried a big suitcase, traveling all the time and never staying at any place for too long. Luaccio silently looked at the place where Erex finally disappeared, shaking his head and muttering, "Eating so much he's not afraid of being full." Erex probably couldn't hear this sentence, because he was already a few kilometers away. Leaning against the edge of the dark lake, he was in a very good mood. It was just a job, and he had a delicious meal. The successor of the former boss. That's much more interesting. Erex smiled, but his smile froze in an instant. Erex subconsciously covered his stomach, revealing a painful expression. He knelt on the ground with one knee. After a while, he seemed to be able to catch his breath. He looked at the calm lake, smiling bitterly. It should be much more terrible. Isn't it too stingy? It hurts. Dream-eating taper. Mr. Erex had a stomachache. Master, the hot water for the bath is ready. The servant girl came from the darkness, but she found her master was squatting by the road. Luaccio picked some flowers that seemed to have just bloomed among the wild flowers growing by the road. Finally, when his hands were full of flowers, Luaccio stood up. He held these flowers, walking to the scene of the accident, to the side of Ali, who was lying quietly. Her body was already cold. Without breath and life, she seemed to be peaceful, with a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Luaccio gently put Ali's hands in front of her abdomen, and then put down the flowers in his hands. "Miss Ali, it's actually very beautiful." Yi accompanied Boss Luo and said, "You also have some." Boss Luo seemed to be in a good mood, so he gave the rest of the flowers to the servant girl. "I'll find a place to put it," she said softly. "Go back. It's almost dawn." When they were young, "This is the cookie my mother made for me. She made it for me because I was obedient. Is it delicious? Do you want to eat it? Okay, then I'll share half of it with you, but you have to be my friend, okay?" Yes, but let's make a deal. If I'm in trouble in the future, you have to help me." "Of course, if you're in trouble, I'll help you too. Don't hide it, because this is a good friend. Will you be my good friend all my life?" "Okay, my name is Gloria, and you?" Chapter 3:23. In the sea of trees below the cliff of the monastery, the swaying shadows of the trees hid something that was spying on it. "It's really peaceful here, Pechinurse Monastery." Lamias put down the binoculars in her hand and jumped down from the tree trunk. As she fell, the lower hem of the black nun's robe fluttered in the wind. The pair of strong but not thick legs stretched out in the air, but the people under the tree did not choose to look at it. First of all, no one dared to provoke the nun. Second, they did not care about such things. Lamias bent her legs slightly when she landed to cushion the impact of the fall. The nun belonging to the Black Order walked toward the tent stationed here. It had been a while since she came to this place. Naturally, she had been observing this monastery for a long time. Is the magnetic field still unchanged? For the past few days, Lamias would ask the people in the tent the same question almost every day. After leaving Romania, the nun assigned here was obviously impatient. Unlike in Romania, she also solved some personal problems in the process of the mission. However, Lamias always felt that there was something wrong with the process. For example, she did not know how she lost her gun, but in the end, it seemed that the mission of the Black Order was completed. As for Jonathan, he also got what he deserved. She felt very good, but it was indeed a little boring here. They just wanted to find something in this monastery. Originally, they had planned the time of the operation, but because of some unexpected things, they had to temporarily postpone the operation. The machine in charge of monitoring the changes of the holy light in the monastery suddenly detected a strong, holy light magnetic field in the monastery. The energy coefficient of the magnetic field was a little too high, far beyond the allocation of the Black Order for this expedition. Angels' descent. During the training of the Black Order, The nun had been taught more than once that when the value of the holy light magnetic field reached such a level, the possibility of a divine master's descent was very high. The staff in the tent took off the headphones, turned around, and said helplessly, "It's still the same as yesterday. There's no movement, and there's no movement. But with its existence, according to my calculations, the strength of the barrier outside the innermost auditorium has probably been strengthened by more than 2 times. Miss Lamiez, are we really not going to consider requesting support from headquarters?" The nun lady said indifferently, "If you think that the headquarters can spare more manpower, I don't mind you applying now. I'd even be happy to help you apply. I was just asking." He knew that the religious order was short on manpower recently. It was also said that the team from the headquarters that was responsible for excavating the ruins had been lost in the grassland of Curie. Later, they sent some people to replace them, but there was no news about it recently. Nobody knew what happened to the people who came later. Of course, as a low-level member, these were just some things he and his companions talked about during their short break. It was more appropriate for the higher-ups to think about their own matters. "Wait, Miss Lamiez, the magnetic field's value is beginning to decline." Just as Lamiez was about to leave, the staff member suddenly said in surprise. Lamiez turned around and squinted at the changing numbers on the screen. She felt that the great spear hidden under her nun's robe was beginning to thirst for blood. "Stop your anger and forsake your anger. Don't do evil because of injustice." In the simple stone room, there was only a small window that could bring light. Anatole stood in front of this small light and prayed as usual. He felt that this was his instinct. He had been praying every day since he was conscious. Therefore, even if the holy power in his body had been sealed, and no matter how he prayed, it would not resonate with the holy power, he still did not give up this habit. The iron door of the stone room was suddenly knocked. It was an old monk, his godfather, Morgy. Morgy stood in front of the iron door and gave an imperceptible sigh, but Anatole whispered in the stone room, "My father, why do you sigh?" Morgy shook his head. "My child, please forgive me, I've tried my best. But you can't be released from here." Anatole said quite calmly, "Father, you've done enough for me. Mr. Sullivan just sealed my holy power in the end, instead of abolishing it. He just imprisoned me here, instead of expelling me. Isn't that enough? God said that we should know how to be grateful. Because you picked me up, I was able to live for 20 years. Morgy frowned. "I've watched you grow up. No one knows you better than me. How can you be a heretic? Tell me, Anatole, my child, can't you remember what you've encountered?" Anatole shook his head. Morgy could only nod helplessly. "That lord has gone back yesterday. We don't know when he will come again. So I'm afraid you have to stay here before he comes again." Anatole said indifferently, "There's water and food here, it's enough. The true cultivators in the monastery are much more hardworking than I am." Morgy wanted to say something, but at that moment, a loud noise suddenly sounded from outside. At the same time, the ground started to shake slightly. The 2 people in the conversation frowned subconsciously. Morgy quickly left the confinement area and walked outside. Anatole couldn't keep calm at this time. A kind of uneasiness made him look out of the window blankly. The loud noise didn't stop, but became more and more frequent. It was the sound of explosion. Vaguely, Anatole even heard weak screams. Soon after, Morgy hurried back and appeared in front of the door of the stone room. His forehead was injured and blood almost dyed half of his face red. "Father!" Anatole finally couldn't keep calm at this time. Morgy hurriedly said, "We were attacked. They want to rob the things in the auditorium. Anatole, get out of here, quickly." "No, father. How can I give you up? Father, you—" Crack! When the door was opened, Morgy had fallen to the ground. He still held the key in his hand, but his chest had been stained with blood. "Forgive me. I can't open the imprisonment of Lord Sullivan on you," Morgy said weakly. "But even the holy light can't work on them. Their bullets seemed to be cursed. They easily tore our shield. Father, don't talk. I'll stop the bleeding for you. No, no need. You come to my ear. I have something to say to you. Anatole had to lower his head. However, Emoji took out something from his bosom and stuffed it into his palm. Please keep the faith in your heart, no matter when or where. But Emoji's voice became weaker and weaker. But if one day you're really confused, if you have doubts in your heart, just go and find Father. Morgie didn't finish his words and closed his eyes. Anatole stared at the thing that the Godfather gave him at the end of his life, a black card. The light shield, transformed by the golden holy light, was easily penetrated by the bullet. Lamias held 2 guns and walked easily in the 13th auditorium of the monastery. The nun lady looked at the last remaining abbot of the monastery. Beside him, several ascetics had fallen in a pool of blood. Without the holy light, you are really worse than a retired veteran. Lamias chuckled. Cursed weapon. The Black Order has developed such a depraved thing. The abbot of the monastery looked very calm. His life seemed to be coming to an end at any time, but he was obviously not afraid. Lamias twirled the silver gun in her hand and smiled. The blood of the impaler, Duke plus some other materials. Although I don't like it very much, the effect is obvious, isn't it? What's your purpose, Sir Abbot? What is hidden under your feet? Sure enough. The abbot's face changed dramatically. You even want to get your hands on it. For the new world, Lamias said indifferently. At the same time, the cursed bullet was shot out of the silver pistol's barrel and penetrated the dean's forehead easily. After waiting for a moment and confirming that the old man could no longer stand up, Lamias took out the walkie-talkie and said, Let the priest team come in and start to erode the barrier here and take out the holy relic inside. Also, start to clean up all the people here and let our prepared people live here. From now on, Pechiers is our product. Miss Lamias, we caught a guy. He seems to be imprisoned in the dungeon and may have escaped during the chaos. Is there holy power on him? Lamias asked indifferently. No signs of holy power activity detected. Lamias thought for a while and said, Those who are imprisoned are either sinners or heretics. Since there is no holy power, let's catch him first. Maybe he will be useful in the future. Got it. Lamias put down the walkie-talkie and glanced at the 13th auditorium. She stretched out her finger and drew a cross in front of the fallen body. Lamias smiled and turned around, putting the gun back into her pocket. For the new world? Who would do that for such a boring reason? The blood on the wall was washed away, and the bodies were taken to a place to be cremated. The door of the monastery was reopened as if nothing had happened. Chapter 324. If it weren't for the rapidly increasing incidence of face blindness on the internet in recent years, but it was still within the aesthetic standards of the public and could be considered good-looking, and she had a rather impressive figure, the chances of her being secretly injected with the drug would be very high. This was especially true in crowded places. For example, the airport. Wearing a pair of sunglasses, she frequently turned her wrist to look at the hands of the watch on her wrist, and at the same time frequently looked at the exit of the parachute. Suddenly, this person took a step forward and quickly walked over to the exit of the superstation. She should have finally found the person she was waiting for, right? She didn't know which man was so lucky to make her wait here so bitterly. Was it the successful man who simply carried a carry-on bag? Or was it the one with a big belly who had just come out and kept talking on the phone by his ear? Or perhaps it was the father who was slowly walking out with the child in his hand. That's not it. It turned out to be a slightly thin man who simply carried a backpack. Perhaps it was a big boy. She suddenly opened her hands. It seemed that she wanted to hug the boy, no matter what the relationship between them was. It was a very enviable thing, wasn't it? Unexpectedly, at the moment when she was about to hug him, the big boy suddenly stepped back, causing her to hug nothing. So she was stunned on the spot, with her hands frozen in the air. This was F*** King embarrassing. What a waste. Bastard. Some men were regretting in their hearts. Didn't I say you don't need to pick me up? Luaccio looked at Ren Xiling up and down. He planned to return to the club directly after getting off the plane. But before getting off the plane, Boss Luo's eyebrows suddenly twitched, feeling that some bad things were waiting for him. As expected, sub-editor Rin suddenly said pitifully, I took the risk of being fired by the boss to sneak out and come here. Boss Luo said indifferently, It's a miracle that you haven't been fired these years. Ren Xiling pretended not to hear it and said more pitifully, Do you know how many tickets I received? Boss Luo sighed and said, Uncle Ma, you've worked hard. Ren Xiling almost choked with sobs. Do you know that I haven't even had lunch yet? Luaccio pointed at his lips and said indifferently, Before you say that, wipe your mouth. I don't remember you having such a greasy lip gloss. Sub-editor Rin then sent out the third finger of her right hand. F***CK. Do you still want to live? Thank you for your hard work, Boss Luo said softly with a smile. Sub-editor Ren's resentment seemed to have been eliminated at once. Her eyes narrowed slightly under the brown glasses. What did you say just now? I can't hear you. I didn't say anything. Let's go. Luaccio shook his head and walked past Ren Xiling. Sub-editor Rin, who hadn't enjoyed the warm greetings between family members, rubbed her palms. She really wanted to pinch his ears. By the way, where is Yu Yi? Why can't I see her? She didn't pinch his ears in the end. She walked quickly to Luaccio, raising her head slightly and asking, She has something to do, so she's on the same shift as me. I see, Ren Xiling complained. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I even booked a seat to welcome you. You won't be used to the food abroad. Hey, wait for me. Brat, wait for me. Hey. By the way, aren't you a bit taller? Hey, F***CK. In sub-editor Ren's beloved car. Ren Xiling rubbed her palms and was about to put them on the steering wheel. She licked her lips and was about to step on the accelerator. Of course. She stepped on it forcefully. Do you have the habit of wearing sunglasses while driving? Unexpectedly, Luaccio asked from the co-pilot seat. It's cloudy today. Ren Xiling suddenly smiled, turning her head, blinking her eyes and waving her V hand. She was so cute that it gave people goosebumps. She said softly, Don't you think I'm too beautiful now? Luaccio shook his head, reaching out and taking off the sunglasses from Ren Xiling's face easily. Ren Xiling's smile suddenly froze. She lowered her head, looking like a defeated dog. Boss, I'm wrong. I shouldn't stay up for 3 consecutive days. Drive. Luaccio sighed, putting on the sunglasses for Ren Xiling. You're not angry? Ren Xiling was stunned. Didn't you say you were hungry? Luaccio shook his head. I also want to eat something. Since we've booked a place, don't waste it. Oh yeah, the red Mini Lubman suddenly drove into the airport road. Since when did the roles of guardian and guardian start to change? Looking at the backward scenery, Luaccio couldn't help but fall into contemplation. Ren Xiling saw that Luaccio didn't speak, habitually turned on the radio of the car stereo. Our latest news, a young man and Ling Cheng fell to their deaths around 3:30 p.m., suspected to be suicide. The deceased, Ren Xiling, subconsciously turned the volume up. The deceased is said to be a student of City 1 High School. At present, the possibility of homicide has been ruled out. According to our understanding, the deceased may be emotionally unstable because of the heavy pressure of studying. Hearing this, Ren Xiling suddenly muttered, Suicide again? Why are there so many suicides? Recently? Luaccio looked over. Ren Xiling nodded. Yes, it's the 4th one, right? They're all students. Is there so much pressure of studying now? It feels weird. Watch the road, ah? Wow. F***CK. Do you know how to drive? Old driver. Hey! In the hall of the club, an old record player whose production date was unknown was playing a song called Ian Gets Seduction. Following the rhythm, in front of the lobby bar, Tayenzi was holding a cup of tequila. He was still wearing tights, but he didn't have an afro anymore. He was slowly rocking and enjoying it very much. By the way, Tayenzi would also sing a few lines, although the tone was very good. Unlike those black soul envoys who completely belonged to the club as an old ghost who only signed a 500-year term, Tayenzi felt that he was at most an outpost. It didn't matter if he didn't work so hard. Besides, relying on performance to reach the top and successfully stepping on the club's maid, he had already given up this unrealistic idea. How good was it now? The boss wasn't here, neither was the black-hearted maid. He could do whatever he wanted. It was simply too awesome when the boss wasn't here. Hey, Ian Gets Seduction, love. Hey, while rocking slowly, Tayenzi slowly moved his body to the front of Chin-Chiu. This woman disappeared a while ago, but came back after a while. Unfortunately, the boss had gone on a trip at that time. However, as a person who had the temporary right to live in the club, even if Tayenzi didn't want to, he couldn't do anything to Chin-Chiu, Yu Sanyang. Besides, he couldn't beat her at all. However, how could the 500-year imprisonment be gone with the wind? Even if he couldn't beat her, he could still disgust her to death. He knew she didn't like such a noisy environment. Did she want to use the mysterious power of the club to temper her mind? How could Tayenzi, who saw through Chin-Chiu's thoughts easily, let her meditate peacefully? Hey! Tayenzi walked around Chin-Chiu, his voice becoming more and more unrestrained. He knew Chin-Chiu couldn't do anything to him, so he became more and more complacent. Chin-Chiu, who was resting with her eyes closed, suddenly opened her eyes at this time, saying indifferently, "Doing nothing and not doing your job, aren't you afraid your boss will blame you when he comes back?" "Hey, bitch, it's been 500 years. Haven't you heard the old saying that the emperor is far away when the mountain is high?" Tayenzi said disdainfully, "Let me tell you. Now the master isn't here, and the other black soul envoys aren't here either. I'm the boss here, do you understand?" Chin-Chiu glanced at him indifferently. 500 years ago. Tayenzi couldn't stand this bitch's contemptuous look. 500 years ago, he couldn't stand it, let alone now. Tayenzi sneered, "Why can't I? I'm the envoy transformed by the master himself, the rightful person here. And you, at most, are just a shameless tenant who wants to stay here. No, you're not even a tenant." Chin-Chiu didn't say anything, slowly closing her eyes. Tayenzi didn't intend to disturb Chin-Chiu's state of mind. At this time he approached her, lowering his head, and said with a gloomy smile, "Although you can stay here, you're not just a servant. Do you know what a servant is? It's a thing to serve people. Bitch, since you're wearing this troublesome maid uniform, why don't you serve me obediently? Go get me the water to wash my feet." "Oh, really?" "Yes, that's right." Tayenzi nodded, drinking the tequila in the cup happily. But before he swallowed it, he felt something wrong. The voice that responded to him just now didn't seem to be the voice of the bitch Chin-Chiu, but it was obviously a woman's voice. Except for this bitch, there was no other woman's voice here. And the voice is so familiar. Miss Yi." Tayenzi, who turned around doubtfully, suddenly became stiff. He couldn't hold the cup firmly, and directly fell from his palm. But the moment the cup finally fell to the ground, it slowly flew into Miss Maid's palm. Yu Yi smiled, walking slowly to Tayenzi, and said softly, "Hold it firmly. Don't be careless next time." "Oh, it's almost finished. Let me add some more for you." "Okay, sir." The gentle tone made Tayenzi feel as if he had eaten a piece of 1,000-year-old ice, and the chill rose from the soles of his feet to his head. You're welcome." Miss Maid smiled. "It's okay. You said it yourself. A person like me, who wears this kind of maid uniform, is a servant. Although I didn't grow up in the East, but I can still understand servant and know what it does. Servant, of course, should serve people, right? Let me get you the water to wash your feet, okay? The 500-year-old ghost's legs suddenly became soft, kneeling on the ground, begging for mercy in a down-to-earth manner. Miss Yi, please, please let me go. This is a big deal. Chapter 325. His breathing, his heartbeat, and even his footsteps. He could clearly hear every sound that belonged to him. Besides that, he seemed to be unable to hear anything else. His footsteps finally arrived at the iron gate of the rooftop. He was about 17 or 18 years old. His line of sight seemed to be narrowed infinitely. He could only see a little bit in front of him. The surroundings seemed to be blurred. He opened the iron gate. The moment he opened the door, the wind from the tall building hit his body, blowing his clothes close to his body. He was still panting, but it was not because he climbed all the way to the rooftop. His heart was also beating rapidly, but it wasn't because of the strenuous exercise he had done. He was nervous, but he still gritted his teeth. As if he was possessed, he walked step by step toward the wall of the rooftop. His breathing became faster because he was climbing over the wall. On the other side of the wall, there was an empty space. Below was the road, which was more than 50 meters high. But this residential building was not the highest in the neighborhood. His legs trembled. After crossing the wall, the place where his feet could stand was only the edge of the eaves, which was less than half the width of his feet. His hands were still holding the wall. Every inch of his back was tightly attached to the wall. Suddenly he glanced at his feet. His body seemed to be tilted infinitely. A feeling of impending death hit the depths of his soul, making him instinctively close his eyes. He felt as if his body was spinning. No matter how hard he tried, he could not stand steadily. Suddenly he took a few deep breaths and then shouted out. He was letting go of his hands. But at the moment when he was facing death, the scene of a family of 3 eating quickly flashed through his mind. The young boy suddenly turned around. Flustered and clumsy, he climbed over the wall again and returned to the safe place inside the wall. His face was pale. He leaned against the wall and slowly slid down. His eyes were blank. Suddenly he felt cold. So he curled up. But the day was not over yet. He did not know how much time had passed. He took out his phone from his pocket and typed, I failed. I can't do it. I'm sorry. He sent it out. I'm sorry. You Miss Yi. It was this old Taoist who deserved to die. I've been cultivating for 100 years and meditating in the white jade token for 500 years. But I still can't see through the 7 emotions and 6 desires in my heart. I let anger control me and do such a shameful thing. Can you put me down? You look terrible. Logically speaking, Onyx Soul could transform into black smoke and change its form, so it shouldn't be trapped. But this time, Taeyin-zi could not move at all. He didn't know where the thing that bound him came from. Taeyin-zi, didn't you say that you wanted me to punish you and make you reflect? Miss Maid didn't even look at him. She just lowered her head and carefully wiped the cup on the table. It was Boss Luo's cup. You're right. Taeyin-zi sighed helplessly. He had nothing to say. He stealthily glanced at Qin Chiyu, who was sitting quietly in the corner with her eyes closed. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Taeyin-zi's eyes really turned red at this moment, thinking of those hurried things that happened 500 years ago. F***ck. Similar things seemed to have happened 500 years ago, but Qin Chiyu seemed to be thinking about something. She suddenly opened her eyes and looked towards the door of the club. Before her, Miss Maid had already walked out of the platform. She didn't know when she had taken action, but now she was standing in front of the door. Of course, before taking action, Miss Maid conveniently stuffed the rag in her hand into Taeyin-zi's mouth to stop him from talking. Ding! When the wind chime in front of the door rang, the boss of the club had already arrived. Luochio carried a small bag and looked at this familiar hall. Miss Qin, have you come back? Qin Chiyu said indifferently. After Qin Feng's property was changed, the money has been handed over to Gao Rui's daughter. Really? Luocho smiled. Thank you for your hard work. Qin Chiyu suddenly said, I didn't tell her anything about Gao Rue and Qin Fong. Luocho nodded, saying softly, Then I'll thank you on behalf of the professor. Oh yes, this is for you. He put the bag in his hand in front of Qin Chiyu. Looking at her, who was a little confused, he said casually, This is a letter for you. Qin Chiyu didn't refuse or thank him. She didn't even look at it. She just nodded and closed her eyes again. Since the boss came back, the mysterious atmosphere in this place began to become active. Obviously, she didn't intend to let go of such an active thing that could temper her state of mind. She's really a diligent person. Luocho glanced at it and didn't look at it again. He didn't have any grudges with Qin Chiyu, even Yu Sanyang, who was her identity 500 years ago. Boss Luo simply observed this strange cultivator from the perspective of a bystander. Although it was hard to comment on what she had done, it was undeniable that she was diligent or persistent. Master, do you need to prepare afternoon tea? No, I'll go to the bottom. After coming back from Russia, Boss Luo had a lot of things that could be used for the sacrifice. The servant girl naturally knew what her master intended to do, so she didn't say anything and continued her daily cleaning work. Before going downstairs, Luocho suddenly turned around, as if he had noticed something, asking curiously, By the way, what did Taiyinzi do? Master, you finally noticed me. Taiyinzi suddenly opened his eyes wide and then shook his body. Yu Yi tilted her head and said, It seems that Taiyinzi developed some strange hobbies during the time we were away. Luocho opened his mouth and looked surprised. Let's see what happened to Taiyinzi. First of all, he was indeed tied up, but the way he was tied up was a bit special. The black rope was woven into a cross in front of his chest to form a tight knot. His hands and feet were tied behind his back, forming a U shape. Oh, he was also hung from the ceiling. After a while, Boss Luo recovered and nodded. Well, it's a very special hobby. Master, listen to my explanation. It's not like that. It's really not like that. Taiyinzi's mouth was gagged and he could only make muffled sounds, and his struggling body could only swing like a pendulum clock. Luocho shook his head. It's okay, don't mind me. I think my ability to accept things is not that weak. Well, even if you have this hobby, I don't mind looking at you with prejudice. Oh, by the way, this binding technique seems good. Have you practiced it for a long time? It's really not like that. I'll leave the store to you for the time being. It may take a long time this time. Luocho didn't look at Taiyinzi but looked at Yu Yi. Got it. Therefore, the servant girl stood in place and respectfully watched her master walk into the corridor leading to the lower floor. Taiyinzi's eyes opened wider, and he finally succeeded in pushing the cloth out of his mouth with his tongue. At the moment when the boss disappeared, he blurted out, Listen to my explanation. Boss Luo disappeared. Taiyinzi felt the deep malice from Miss Maid, whose heart was as black as ink in the club. I'm finished. My reputation is completely ruined. Perhaps Qin Chiyu, who was concentrating on comprehending with her eyes closed, also sensed this scene and smiled faintly. She probably felt it was interesting, colorful, pink. When the light ball entered the altar, Luocho thought of the question he had a long time ago. Where did they go after all? Or what would they bring to the altar? He didn't know. The only thing he knew was that the sacrifice this time had given him a feeling of fullness, and all kinds of strange abilities had been strengthened by quite a bit. But this was something that would increase as long as he completed the transaction. Now, he didn't care too much about it. What he cared about was that he got the second gold and silver card. What kind of change will the second card bring to the altar? Let me see. The golden and silver cards were still in front of Luocho. At the same time, the altar slowly rose again, revealing its hidden part. To be continued. Chapter 326. Rolling black smoke that looked like water was seeping out from the bottom of the rising altar. Luocho, who had experienced such a situation not long ago, wasn't surprised at all. When all the hidden parts of the altar were lifted up, Luaccio walked directly in front of it. One of the 7 card slots had been embedded. Different from the first time, the altar seemed to be more active this time. The second gold and silver card, floating in the air, slowly flew into one of the card slots. It wasn't adjacent to the first one, but 2 slots apart. It seemed that there was a certain corresponding method. While thinking, Luaccio raised his head and looked at the projection on the altar. This projection hadn't changed since the first time it appeared. It was a pale and deathly still sphere, Earth. After Boss Ren's second gold and silver card was inserted into the slot it belonged to, time seemed to have paused for a moment, but it also disappeared as if it was a natural thing to do. Because it was only less than a second, Luaccio could accurately grasp his own time. His existence was no longer due to metabolism, because everything that determined his existence had been concretized into a numerical value, and this numerical value was time. He didn't have a fixed time, which was a fixed lifespan. It seemed that the most accurate counter was hidden in his body, so he knew his time better than anyone else. Nothing? Luaccio frowned at this time. After the second gold and silver card was embedded, it didn't meet his expectations. The altar didn't change at all, so Luaccio subconsciously observed the newly added gold and silver card. However, he vaguely sensed something amidst the strange pause. Luaccio closed his eyes and began to recall. Did nothing really happen? No, it was like water dripping from a stalactite into a pool. A ripple spread out with the altar as the center. The speed of the ripple was immeasurable. In a flash, it spread to a distance that couldn't be seen clearly, as if there was no end. Luaccio just had a feeling that he seemed to have opened some kind of mechanism. When Luaccio came up from the lowest level, it had already been more than 2 hours since he went down. In the end, he could only give up for the time being. The former boss wouldn't ask Erex to send the second golden and silver card for no reason. Even the former boss didn't know that Luaccio had actually found the first golden and silver card by accident. He asked Erex to send this card to him. Maybe he just wanted him to notice the hidden part of the altar. Are you trying to pique my curiosity so that I can collect the remaining cards? That was probably the only conclusion that could be drawn. Of course, he didn't think that his predecessor was scheming against him. Every club owner had a mysterious sixth sense. Ever since this feeling was born, it had never been wrong. Regarding this matter, Luaccio couldn't feel the slightest bit of malice. Moreover, Erex said that his ex was dying. Master, you're up. Yes. I stayed for a while. Luaccio answered casually, but he saw a different smile on the servant girl's face. What happened? Luaccio asked curiously. Master, the critical door is opened. Isn't it a happy thing? Yu-Yi congratulated him softly. Critical door? Luaccio gave a start. Who the hell knew what the critical door was? Yu-Yi was stunned, covering her mouth with her fingers. Yu-Yi didn't know. I thought it was opened by Master. Take me to see what it is. Luaccio frowned. He thought the critical door would be somewhere, but he never expected that it was in the club's lobby. In the middle of the hall, apart from the old wooden door that allowed customers to enter, there were 2 more black doors. They stood upright on both sides of the lobby. The black doors didn't have handles. Chin Chiyu seemed to be surprised by the sudden appearance of the 2 doors. At this time, she was silently observing Luaccio standing in front of one of the doors. Without saying anything, he pushed the door in front of him open. The black door stood upright without sticking to the wall. So theoretically, it would lead to the middle if it was opened. But obviously, Luaccio didn't see such a situation. He only saw that the open door seemed to lead to another world. Of course, this was just a feeling, because what could be seen through the door frame was obviously a black whirlpool. Master, please follow me, the servant girl suddenly said softly. Not long after, they walked to the second floor of the club. Yu-Yi said with a smile, Master, the so-called critical door is actually a channel for customers. It's to make it more convenient for customers to come to our club at any time. Be careful. Yu Yi nodded. Well, it's like a network. In different places all over the world, there are points for setting up clubs. As long as you are in the vicinity of this point and are qualified to be a guest of the club, you can summon the door from this point. Through the critical door, you can let the customers come here. Teleport? Luaccio gave a start. Like I can go to any place I want to go. Of course, Boss Luo only wanted to go to the city he was in, but it seemed that the distance had increased a lot. Luo vaguely felt that he should be able to freely travel to several nearby cities. This time, he would return after sacrificing those souls. Of course, it's not a physical teleportation. Yu Yi shook her head. Customers pass through the critical door, and their spiritual bodies come here to discuss in detail. Well, their projections. Well, Master, now you can light up 2 of the network points. Only 2? Luaccio gave a start. He saw that there seemed to be nothing wrong with the 2 doors corresponding to 2 points. However, he originally thought that this was because all of the points could activate the critical gate. Well, 1 door corresponds to 1 point. Yu Yi said softly, the appearance of the critical door means that Master's ability has increased another step. When your ability is stronger, you can light up more points. Boss Luo said subconsciously, when the previous boss was here, how many points were there? Yu Yi shook her head. I'm not sure, but from the customers I've met, there were at least 300 points. Only the boss himself knows how many points there are. 300! It was like there was no harm without comparison. Of course, Boss Luo didn't care much about this kind of harm. It was still unknown how many years he had been in power, but he knew better than anyone how long he had been in power. Less than 5 months. Luaccio could light up 2 of the existing points, but he could also add 2 new points according to his preference. But once the points were opened, he had to burn his lifespan as the price to close them. Why did it burn? Because the price to close a point was 100 years of lifespan. But it was undeniable that the life of the points was quite humane. Damn it. Customers could come here through the critical door even if they were on the other side of the ocean. It wasn't convenient for Boss Luo, but it was convenient for the club's purpose. 300 points. Can we fit 300 doors in the lobby? Luaccio suddenly thought of another question. There are only 2 critical doors, but different points can overlap with the passage of the door, so it doesn't take up much space. This is probably the best news I've heard. Luaccio said, but how to open this point, I'll think about it. Miss Maid had no opinion on the master's decision. This wasn't something that could be opened casually. Luaccio had his own plan. Once the points were opened, he couldn't close one of them for a long time. Even if he could open more points in the future, Luaccio planned to control these points to a certain extent, or even not to open any of them. 300 points, or even more, it sounded awesome. It was like a cloud of customers coming. But have you ever thought that the customers would line up to open the door and come to the lobby, and you wouldn't even have time to go to the washroom? What kind of experience would that be? Luaccio suddenly understood why the former boss didn't care about anything after the deal. Was it because there were too many customers and he lost interest in follow-up? The more business he did, the less time he had available to him. Another problem was that Yu Yi thought that Luaccio opened the door himself. Then he assumed that when his ability reached a certain level, he could open the critical door on his own initiative. Since it was something that could be opened on his own initiative, it meant that he had the relevant cognition. But obviously he didn't have such cognition now. That was to say, this was an upgrade brought by the second gold and silver card. The power of the club didn't need to be improved. As long as the deal was established, its ability was endless. This was more like the opening of the function, a total of 7 card slots. Did it mean that when they were all assembled, all the functions of the club could be opened? But Luaccio didn't understand now. As long as the deal was established, the club could do anything. Then what other functions should it have? Right, Actually, we could have explained it downstairs. Why did you come up? Luocio suddenly asked in confusion. Miss Maid opened her beautiful blue eyes and said softly, "Since the master doesn't know these things, how can I let others see the master's puzzled side? Wouldn't that be shaming the master?" Yi, you're really great. Boss Luo suddenly had an idea. He wanted to say something, but that strange palpitation was instantly washed away. In the end, he just smiled slightly. To be continued. Chapter 3:27. Uncle Rat Monster, this is your medicine. Remember to take it 4 times a day, and then, in Long Shiro's pet hospital, the little butterfly monster, who had been working for some time, was counting her fingers and telling the patients what to pay attention to one by one. And in what else? It doesn't matter if you don't tell me. I know it anyway. Uncle Rat Monster waved his hand quickly. No, this is my job. I must do it well. Why? Uncle Rat Monster glanced at the little butterfly monster who had recently become the hostess of the pet hospital and was getting more and more popular. He kept asking himself, why? Why can't you remember what you said to the patient even though you have a math book on the table? Oh, finally, remember to clean your body before going to bed every day. Dr. Long said that you are too dirty and don't take a bath. This is the reason why your skin disease often recurs. This little guy is so cute. If I didn't bring my baby here to get the asthma medicine, I would definitely flirt with him and reminisce about the memories of my youth. Abba, your tail is sticking up. Go away. Uncle Rat Monster pushed his son and left awkwardly. It was just a thought. This purity was almost extinct among the creatures, so Uncle Rat Monster didn't really intend to tarnish it. It was just that he was a middle-aged rat, so it was inevitable that he would lose some restraint. She is really popular, not like that old witch in the office. After saying goodbye to Uncle Rat Monster, Luo Dance suddenly heard such sharp words from the pet hospital's freeloader. Yes, that was what Sister Long called Miss Su Zijuan, freeloader. Sister Zijuan, be careful not to let Sister Long hear you. The little butterfly monster had to remind her, although she knew that this reminder seemed to have no effect. Long Shiro and Su Zijuan were like fire and water. Every time they met, they would quarrel for a while. It seemed that they would feel uncomfortable if they didn't ridicule each other for a day. Su Zijuan snorted coldly, clearly expressing her attitude. I'm not afraid. If she has the ability, let her bite me. The little butterfly monster was already used to this, and simply sat down. She touched the bottle of milk with both hands and drank happily. She licked the remaining white liquid off her lips and began to read the book in her hand. What is this? Su Zijuan directly took the book from the little butterfly's hand and casually skimmed through it. Then she indifferently said, "This kind of thing written by humans is just a waste of your time. It's better to cultivate. You're too skinny. If you don't cultivate, when will you become fatter?" Fat. Luo Dance was stunned. She was a butterfly demon who had read an entire Chinese dictionary, but she didn't know why fat could be used to describe the level of cultivation. Su Zijuan said indifferently, "What I mean is more powerful." The little butterfly monster's feet shook under the table, and then she blinked her eyes and said, "But as long as I have enough monster power, it's fine. Sister Long is here, it's very safe. Besides, the things written by humans are very interesting, and I can understand many of them." Su Zijuan said indifferently, "We've unlocked our spiritual wisdom. Our wisdom is more than 2 times higher than that of humans. It's too bad that you can't understand the things written by humans." The little butterfly monster didn't mind. She wasn't the kind of person who was easily angered and didn't want to argue. When she just stepped out of society, she always remembered what the boss of the bun shop and the aunt taught her. Be kind to others and enjoy themselves with them. Well, of course I don't understand. Because I've just grown up, I'm not like Sister Sue and Sister Long. Luo Dance smiled innocently. By the way, Sister Sue, you've seen so much, so your knowledge must be very rich. It's just SOO. Su Zijuan hummed. The little butterfly monster's eyes brightened, and she quickly opened the derivative book borrowed from another patient's child. She turned to one page and said pitifully, "Sister Sue, can you teach me how to solve this problem? I've been thinking about it all day, but I still can't figure it out." Sue Zijuan glanced at it casually, and her eyeballs rolled from top to bottom, then from bottom to top and back again. She blinked and stared at the little butterfly monster. Suddenly, Sue Zijuan's body slowly lay flat on the ground. Oh, right, her hands were close to her lower abdomen, like a sleeping princess. Sister Sue? Sister Sue? How could she fall asleep so easily? It's not good to sleep on the floor. For Luo dance, it was not unusual for Sue Zijuan, who had half Hamba blood, to suddenly fall asleep. In fact, she often lay down like this. Don't worry about this shameless girl. Long Shirwa came out of the office, probably intending to smoke again. She walked to Sue Zijuan's side and stretched out her foot to kick her. She sneered and said, "Little girl, let me tell you, this freeloader didn't even go to kindergarten. She doesn't even know how to write her own name. It's impossible for her to teach you." Ah, the little butterfly monster was surprised when she heard it for the first time. Long Shirwa shrugged and suddenly said, "What's the problem today? Tell me." She remembered that 2 weeks ago, Sister Long had taught her about multiplication lists. The little butterfly monster asked Sister Long, known function equals a 3-32 plus 1. If there is a unique 0 and 0 is greater than 0, what is the range of values of a... Long Shirwa nodded calmly and blew away the smoke. She said slowly, "Little guy, I've thought about it. No matter if you're a human or a demon, if you don't work hard, you'll just be a freeloader. It's not difficult to solve this problem. But the question is, have you tried your best?" Luo Dance shook her head subconsciously. "I just thought about it for a while." "I know, Sister Long, I will think about it again. If I can't think anymore, I will ask you." "Well, good attitude." Long Shirwa walked to the door of the pet center with a cigarette in her mouth. Who the hell knew what A was? Didn't she just learn the multiplication table 2 weeks ago? Humans are so idle, isn't it enough to add, subtract, multiply, and divide? Long Shirwa leaned against the door and muttered. But the little butterfly monster's learning ability was beyond her expectation. She remembered that yesterday, or the day before yesterday, this little guy seemed to have mentioned that she wanted to take part in the college entrance examination. It was not difficult for her to get a household registration and open a back door for her. After all, there were a few monsters who had successfully mingled in some units after such a long time. The problem was, I don't even know what it is. What the hell is that? Long Shirwa suddenly quivered. She quickly threw the cigarette on the ground and stamped it out. Then she rushed into the pet hospital and came to the front desk. She was looking for something in the pile of things at the front desk. "Sister Long, what are you looking for?" "Found it." Long Shirwa found a leaflet and threw it in front of Luo Dance. "Go to the cram school." This cram school for college entrance examination opened recently, and now it's offering a discount. But I have to go to work." Luo Dance thought for a while and shook her head. "Besides, the tuition is so expensive." "It's okay, I'll support you." Long Shirwa waved her hand and said, "Go to finish your studies." "Really?" The little butterfly monster suddenly jumped up happily. Long Shirwa touched her head like a spoiled pet. Well, this time she didn't need to think about what A was. "Humph, do you think she's so kind? This old which can only recite the multiplication table at most, and it was taught by the person who made it. Do you think she really went to school?" Suddenly, Sue Zijuan, who was sleeping on the ground, turned her body and said lightly as if she was sleep-talking, "Long Shirwa, Long Shirwa. Well, I seem to have taken some medicine yesterday and haven't had time to clean it up. I'll go and have a look." Ah! She floated away. In the evening, he lowered his head in his room, and his mother sat in front of him. His mother was holding a mock exam paper in her hand. "Gujajia, why is this mock exam 4 points lower than last time? Do you know how many people in your class have surpassed you? Just 4 points. I was careless. He intended to say something, but his mother said sternly, just 4 points? Gu jiajia, do you know what kind of attitude you have? Don't you know the importance of 1 point? Let me ask you, if you are only 4 points away from the admission line, how will you feel? Will you feel uncomfortable? For points may decide you have to spend 1 more year repeating your studies. Are you willing to waste 1 more year? He could only shake his head. His mother sighed and said, Jiajia, I didn't mean to scold you. Do you know how tired your father and I are working outside? But we don't talk about this when we come back. Save some money at home. We all let you attend 1 more cram school. Why? It's to give you more advantages than others. But have you been lazy recently? He lowered his head and didn't dare to look at his mother's eyes. Seeing this, his mother sighed and shook her head. Think about it, this kind of attitude is not right. All right, I'll take a shower later and rest early. Tomorrow you have to memorize vocabulary. Don't miss the best time of the day. I know. He nodded his head. Well, be good. We only have 1 child. I hope you can be successful. Don't blame me for being strict with you. This is all for your own good. His mother gently patted his shoulder and said softly. When the door was closed and he was left alone in the room, he silently sat for a while and suddenly opened the drawer of the desk and took out the hidden mobile phone. Chapter 328. Sub-editor Rin came to the police station with 2 boxes of biscuits. Of course, to her, the place she was visiting could be described as a place with no one around. Ma Howd, who was playing Minesweeper in the office, didn't even dare to breathe because this was the first time he might get the highest score in history. He had played Minesweeper for more than 10 years, but he had never been like today, only the last one was left. Ma Ili really felt that he had the help of God today, except that he didn't have a live broadcast. He even wiped the sweat off his palms before he clicked on the last item. Come on, my primordial power. Now it's time to witness a miracle. So he took a deep breath and prepared to fight with his faith of more than 10 years, waiting for the honor to come. The door of the office was pushed open with a bang. Old Ma, afternoon tea. Ma Ili's nightmarish voice suddenly sounded, and his hand subconsciously slipped. Oh, Rin Xiling, you and I are irreconcilable. This biscuit shop's cakes are not bad. Ma Howd took a bite, but looked at this troublesome woman with his usual vigilance. How much is the fine this month? Be honest, I won't do more than 10 tickets. Exactly 10 tickets. Ma Howd pinched his eyebrows, sighed, and simply picked up the second biscuit. Anyway, it's a waste not to eat. This work must be done. It's better to eat more, so as not to let the people outside take advantage of it. Little Luo Chiu is back. Yes, got off the plane yesterday. Oh yes, this is a letter he asked me to bring you. Seeing that it was an ashtray, Ma Ili immediately picked it up with a smile and looked at it carefully. This is good. Luochio knows me well. Not long after, Ma Howd leaned on the table, approached, and whispered, Last time you said that little Luochio has a girlfriend. What does she look like? Ma Howd, when did you become such a busybody? Ren Xiling smiled and said, You've been very free recently, haven't you? Didn't you say you were going to work overtime like an old dog? Ma Howd casually replied, That's a long time ago. The city's leaders are already very conscientious. They're not paralyzed at home and are still working. Are you really free these days? Rin Xiling suddenly asked. I don't have any materials for you. Ma Howd knew all too well what this woman was thinking. The world has been peaceful recently. There are no strange cases, except for some thieves. If you're interested, you can go out and find out more from them. Didn't you say that several people committed suicide? Didn't you say it was suicide? Ma Howd was still fiddling with the ashtray and said, Old Cheen from the Forensic Science Department also said that it was indeed a suicide. Although it's a bit of a coincidence that they were all students, they didn't have any grudges. They were all recognized as good students, and they didn't study in the same school. But what? Renzeiling's eyes lit up. Ma Howd rolled his eyes. Can you not hide your recording pen? Did I promise you that I would let you record it? Sub-editor Rin smiled embarrassedly. Ma Howd lit a cigarette and said, but they all attended a cram school. I heard it was opened recently. We learned about this cram school, and there's nothing wrong with it. It has a legitimate license, and the teachers are all very experienced retired teachers. Zeiling frowned and said, but don't you think it's strange that all the students in this cram school committed suicide? It's very strange. Mahoud nodded and said, the problem is that they did commit suicide. One of them was caught by the surveillance camera walking to the rooftop alone. The medical examiner and the examiner also came to the same conclusion. The case has been closed and the family has taken the body back. What can I do? Besides, if all the students in this cram school commit suicide, they don't need to do business anymore. Mahoud shrugged and said, it's just that these kids are under too much pressure. Besides, many students commit suicide every day. It's impossible to count them. It's just that ordinary people don't know about it. Don't you know about it? Give me the address of the cram school. Zeiling suddenly spread out her hand. What do you want to do? We've closed the case. Don't make more trouble, okay? I'll let my grandson know about the market in advance. My grandson doesn't need to take the college entrance examination. In the future, Zeiling stared at him. Grandson? Mahoud gave a start. He slapped the table and jumped up. Little Luo Chiu is so awesome. He made someone pregnant. Awesome. He has a child before marriage. He deserves to be Brother Luo's son. What are you talking about? I said in advance. In advance. Zeiling sighed and muttered, I wish he had such good energy. You scared me. Looking at Zeiling leaving the police station with the address of the cram school, Black Soul number 18 felt a little pressure. Was it really okay to listen to these two big shots casually discussing about the new master? When would this task end? Black Soul number 18 sighed and floated up. This woman drove too fast. She didn't know where she would go if she didn't pay attention. Black Soul number 18, stop. Miss Yi. Black Soul number 18 hurriedly turned around. She didn't know when Miss Servant Girl of the club appeared behind her. The servant girl carried a shopping bag in her hand, which was filled with vegetables and meat. Why are you here? Miss Yi. Number 18, get ready. Come back in 2 days to formally meet the new master. Yi whispered. Black Soul number 18 was stunned. But don't I need to continue to protect Miss Rin? Miss Servant Girl said indifferently, the new master has opened the critical door. I have no way to hide you. Besides, the new master doesn't need you to do this job. The critical door has been opened. Black Soul number 18 was pleasantly surprised. No wonder I have an instinctive feeling of not wanting to get close to Miss Rin since yesterday. For the Black Soul envoys scattered all over the world, the activation of the critical gate greatly facilitated their work. When there were enough points that could summon the critical gate, it meant that each Black Soul envoy had their own territory, and they didn't all have to be in the same place, resulting in a situation where there were too many wolves and too little meat. As for the feeling of not wanting to get close to Miss Rin, it was probably the embodiment of the boss's will. This kind of will may be unintentional, but it was very obvious for the Black Soul envoys. Yes, but the new master hasn't officially opened his own point. Yi said indifferently, if the master doesn't plan to do so as servants, we shouldn't mention it. I see. Black Soul number 18 nodded helplessly. She knew that Miss Servant Girl was reminding her not to let the new master set the point in the area where she used to live. Since Miss Maid was born in the club 300 years ago, those unruly Black Soul envoys had long been buried by the grass on their graves. Take a rest these 2 days. Yi nodded. I have to go back to prepare dinner for the master. Take care, Miss Yi. In the club, Luocio habitually picked up the black teacup and took a sip. Then he stopped. He found the taste of the tea was a bit wrong, so he raised his head subconsciously. He found that the one who brought the tea to him was not Yu Yi, but Qin Chu. Your servant went to buy vegetables and told me to add water for you at this time. Qin Chu said indifferently. There was nothing to be dissatisfied with, but there seemed to be something to be dissatisfied with. Are you used to living here? Luocio put down the teacup and asked indifferently. Qin Chu said, For me, it doesn't matter where I live. On the contrary, I can recover the loss of this life faster here. Luocio asked curiously, I heard from Tai Inzi that there are very few people who have cultivated the cultivation method in the white jade token in the past countless years. It was even lost from the generation after you. That is to say, you're the only one who succeeded in the past 500 years. What do you want to ask? Qin Chu said indifferently. Luocio smiled faintly. I'm just curious if there's anyone who succeeded before you, and then, like you now, they're living their lives in the same way as you. Aren't you omniscient? Qin Chu said indifferently. Why do you ask me? Boss Luo just smiled and didn't answer this question. He couldn't say that the information needed to be paid, but since I got it from you, I don't need to waste it such stingy words. Except for me, only 2 people succeeded in the cultivation of Huanjin Dao. One is my master, the other is the original grandmaster. Qin Chu suddenly said, I'm also looking for them. Luocio thought for a while and suddenly said, Since you want to find them, why don't you go through us? It's not necessary. After Qin Chu finished the task of serving tea and water, she returned to the corner of the hall and prepared to meditate. Before she closed her eyes, she said almost indifferently, This is also a part of cultivation. Finally, she closed her eyes and went into the world of her own thoughts. Looking at Qin Chu's meditating appearance, Luocio seemed to have seen something similar somewhere. That's right. He remembered the statue that hid the first gold and silver card he had obtained. He was also like that, forgetting everything. Boss Luo shook his head and continued to read the world atlas that he opened today. He didn't really understand the world of these cultivators. Then he should think about where the point should be set. Number 24 Gaojing Road. Yes, here. After checking the address in her hand and finding the destination, Ren Xiling stopped the car. She looked around. There were office buildings nearby, and the farthest commercial street was 2 kilometers away. It was quiet in such a place where office buildings were concentrated. It seemed to be suitable for cram classes. The boss of this cram school is quite attentive. Ren Xiling looked around and prepared to go up to the cram school floor of this building. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, an anxious voice could be heard saying, Wait, please wait. Ren Xiling pressed the button to open the door and saw a pretty clean girl trotting in, about 10 years old? Yes, she was carrying a box of Talensu. Did she also come to the cram school? To be continued. Chapter 329. Which floor do you want to go to? Ren Xiling decided to test the little girl. On the Chinese website, the little girl was stunned for a moment before she hurriedly pulled out a neatly folded leaflet from her bag. Yes, it's here. Found it. 11th floor. 11th floor. Ren Xiling looked at the little girl's reaction. Are you going to sign up for this cram school? Yes. The little girl revealed a smile that made sub-editor Ren feel very bright. Sister Long asked me to sign up. Who knew what Sister Long was like? But Ren Xiling thought the little girl was probably the type who seldom went out. Was she a rare animal? How could she reveal her information so easily? Auntie, are you going to the cram school too? The little girl suddenly asked with her head tilted. Auntie, ah? Ren Xiling approached the little girl without saying a word. Perhaps it was because of the pressure. The little girl subconsciously stepped back. She knew that her body was completely pressed against the side of the elevator, and there was no way to retreat. What's the matter? The little girl was a little flustered. Sister Long said that she had cast a spell on her body. Not many people in this world would be able to see her true form, so she should be able to move around without worry. Look at me, yes. Look at my face. Ren Xiling squinted. Well, that's it. Tell me, which part of me looks like an anti-ah? Wrinkles, dark circles, and pimples. The little girl swallowed her saliva and replied with cold sweat while protecting her trensu with one hand. Ren Xiling took a few steps back as if she was hit hard. She turned around, took out the makeup mirror box from the bag, and looked at it carefully. Oh my God! During Luo Chio's trip abroad, he had been working overtime and eating instant noodles every day. Although she knew that she had dark circles under her eyes. When did the crow's feet appear? Damn, when did the pimples come out? How could the little girl's eyes be so sharp? She clearly didn't notice it before she left the house. She only had 2 shallow lines. Big sister, are you okay? The little girl looked strange and couldn't help but ask with concern. Nothing, I'm just. Ren Xiling looked at the floor indicator of the elevator at a 45-degree angle, as if she was standing on a mountain peak looking at the world, and said in a lonely voice, a little sad, Guo Xinyang. The little girl was stunned. As if she didn't know that she had just added insult to injury, she said innocently, Sister Long said that the people who read Guo Xinyang's books are all old. Don't let me see you again. When the elevator door opened, Ren Xiling rushed out of the elevator door and left in grief. However, Ren Xiling soon saw the girl at the front desk of the cram school. If you want to sign up, fill out this form first. This is yours. The receptionist handed the form to the little girl and then looked at Ren Xiling. Miss, are you here to sign up too? Why? Is there a problem? Sub-editor Rin, who was still suffering from the shock, couldn't bring herself to greet the girl with a smile. She glanced at the little girl beside the receptionist. The little girl clearly felt the murderous look from the receptionist. She lowered her head in a cold sweat, doubting whether the receptionist had seen through her identity. No. The receptionist was stunned for a while and then smiled politely. We also have a special cram school for the adult college entrance examination, so there's no problem at all. Can I know the teachers and teaching conditions here first? Ren Xiling asked casually. The receptionist smiled. Yes, of course. Therefore, she looked at the colleague next to her and ordered, Xiao Lu, show this lady around our classroom first. Ren Xiling followed another receptionist and left. The little girl finally felt the terrifying gaze leave. She sighed softly and took a sip of the Terensu that was produced last week to calm her nerves. Then she said, I filled it out. Well, Luo Dance, what a nice name. The receptionist glanced at the little girl and smiled, looking at the little girl's white skin. She couldn't help but sigh at the beauty of youth. Really? The little butterfly monster smiled happily and said casually, a very nice boss changed it for me. Although she didn't know why the name was changed by the boss instead of her family, the receptionist didn't ask too much and began to read the form carefully. Soon, she frowned and looked at Luo Dan, saying, Well, miss, can you sit over there for a while? Okay. Seeing the smart little girl away, the receptionist picked up the phone and called the leader. Manager, a guest has just come. But there's still some educational background in the information. It's written on the school's website. Home correspondence study. Do you think it's okay? Home correspondence study? Let's get her to do an academic test first. Okay. The receptionist nodded and then waved to Luo Dance. Miss Luo, please come with me first. You need to do a test first. Okay. However, Ren Xiling walked around inside and didn't find anything wrong with it. As Mahoud said, most of the teachers here were old people who were hired after retirement. It was too abrupt to ask to see the cram school's boss. Sub-editor Rin, who didn't want to reveal her identity as a reporter, soon lost interest. She followed the receptionist to the front desk and found that the little girl had disappeared. Miss, do you need anything else? Do you have any information, brochures, or something like that? I want to study it. Rin Xiling said casually. The receptionist nodded. No problem. Please wait a moment. Rin Xiling leaned on the front desk and felt bored. Suddenly, she glanced at the form that had just been filled in. Luo Dance? Did the father who changed this name watch too many period dramas? 18 years old? Ren Xiling suddenly narrowed her eyes, licked her lips, and smiled like a mischievous child. She quietly picked up the pen. Call me Auntie. She added a small stroke on the 1, making it 78. Sub-editor Ren's spiritual victory had always been very powerful. Well, we will inform you when the test results are out. The receptionist saw that Luo Dance finished 3 test questions in 1.5 hours. She finished 1 test question in half an hour on average. By the way, this is the information that has just been filled in. Check it again. If there is no problem, you can wait for the notice. The receptionist glanced at the form. Hey, did you make a mistake here? 78. The receptionist smiled. It says 78 years old here. The little butterfly was stunned. She didn't remember that she had made a mistake. She had checked it several times because she was worried that she would give herself away. But 78 years was clearly all the time since she was born. Although she hadn't been a monster for a long time, counting the time when she was born, it was exactly 78 years. The little butterfly monster's nose twitched. She smelled the scent of that big sister on the form. Sure enough, she saw through me. What should I do? The little butterfly hurriedly filled in the form and quickly left the cram school. She seemed to have met someone before she went out. A boy about 17 or 18 years old lowered his head and seemed to have something on his mind. I'm sorry. Luo Dance quickly apologized and ran to a place where no one was. Taking out the phone, Sister Long. Someone found out my real identity. Well, I don't know about a girl. I can't feel any monster aura. Her eyes are so scary. She saw how old I am. What should I do? A girl? She saw through your age at a glance. On the other end of the phone, Long Shirwa frowned. Some great demons with cultivation could basically see through the origin of a little demon. The problem was that it was difficult to pinpoint the age of a little demon. She couldn't do it under normal circumstances. What else did she say? The little butterfly thought for a while. Oh, she also said, don't let her see me again, or something. Long Shira nodded. I see. You go first. After hanging up the phone, Long Shira narrowed her eyes. How dare you threaten the girl under my protection? I'd like to see which immortal you are. Chapter 330. As soon as he entered the classroom, he heard some whispers. He quickly found his seat among the many seats and sat down. In front of him were students from different schools and wearing different school uniforms. Just like him, the people here did not participate in the school's evening self-study. Moreover, compared to the dozens of students who participated in the evening self-study class, facing a teacher who was perhaps still young, the parents of these students were more willing to let their children come here. That was what the parents of retired teachers who had been in the profession for decades thought. They were talking about the recent cases of falling off buildings because they heard that the victims were all students of this cram school, even though they were not in the same classroom. There were 15 to 20 students in a cram school. At present, there were 5 classes and a 6th class was under construction. The best conditions, the best teachers, and the first-hand test questions. Therefore, despite the exorbitant tuition fees, it still attracted many parents who flocked to the school. Well, get ready for class. Tonight, we will analyze the questions from Shandong province that we just took this year. Tidy up your mood and don't let unnecessary things affect your mood. Remember, there are many single plank bridges in front of you. There are many bridges, but more people. There may be 100 or 200 people crowding at the bridgehead with you. Although the old man had retired, his temper didn't seem to be restrained much. Gu Jejia looked at the students who had begun to write and look at the podium, and hurriedly adjusted his mood. Among the teachers of this cram school, this old man was known as the god of black face. But at this moment his cell phone suddenly vibrated. Gu Jiajie glanced at the old teacher on the podium cautiously and quickly looked down at his cell phone. SMS. 9 o'clock, same place. I'm back. When the door was opened, Luocho saw Ren Xiling walking in listlessly while tidying up the house. Subeditor Ren glanced at the clean living room and showed an ugly smile. Then she sighed and slumped on the sofa, waving her hand. I was going to tidy up before you came back, but I forgot. Luocho was used to this woman's self-righteous laziness, so he didn't say anything. Instead, he poured a cup of warm water and put it in front of Ren Xiling. Thank you. Ren Xiling moaned and suddenly sat up straight, looking at Luocho. Boy, sit here. She patted the seat beside her. No. Ren Xiling gave a start and raised her eyebrows. She angrily pulled down Boss Luo's arm. Fuck, sit down. Look at me. What's up? Look at me. Ren Xiling patted her cheek. Look at my face. Be serious. Boy, I want to ask you a question. You have to answer me honestly. But before Subeditor Rin could ask the question. Dark circles, 2 wrinkles, acne. Luocho said lightly, You probably want to ask these questions. In fact, it's nothing. Don't stay up late, don't eat instant noodles, and live a normal life. By the way, drink more warm water. Don't drink soft drinks. Ren Xiling seemed to have received a devastating blow, saying pitifully, So, I really look like an auntie? Luocho turned on the TV and said while watching, What happened today? I tell you, today I let a little girl call me auntie. God, I'm only 29 years old. It's time to call you auntie. Brat, do you still want to be a family member? How can you hit me when I'm down like this? Ren Xiling said pitifully, You Luos only know how to bully me. Us. Luocho gave a start. That little girl's surname is also Luo. Ren Xiling hummed, Maybe you were a family 500 years ago. She's just a little younger, with better skin and cuter. What's the big deal? Luocho suddenly asked, What's her name? Luo. Luo what? Ren Xiling frowned and thought for a while. Oh, Luo Dance. Her father must have watched too many period dramas. Was that little butterfly still in this city? Luocho shook his head. We weren't a family 500 years ago. I'm just saying, why are you so serious? Ren Xiling patted Boss Luo's head. I'm going to take a bath and sleep. No. From today on, I'll go to bed early and get up early. Have you eaten? Luocho asked softly. No, I'm on a diet. Seeing Ren Xiling rushing into the bathroom, Luocho smiled and began to pack up the things brought back by this woman. Cram school? Just like that, a brochure fell to the ground. Luocho opened the brochure and read it carefully. Suddenly, a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. He raised his hand, and the brochure flew out from his hand to the center of the living room. The brochure began to open, and then began to project some translucent images of what had happened. Boss Luo looked at these images, silently. When he saw Subeditor Rin licking her lips and drawing something with a pen, he smiled, subconsciously. Auntie, that's it. He shook his head and waved his hand. The images disappeared. Luocho stood up and packed up the rest of the things. He turned off the light in the living room and went back to the room, thinking about the little butterfly. This little butterfly was very studious and even attended cram school. He quietly fell asleep in his clothes. Early in the morning, a lot of people had gathered in the community. At this time, Ma'ili, who was eating a hamburger, pushed through the crowd and walked in. Clear the crowd and be careful not to destroy the scene. Is the forensic old Chin here? Then who? See if there's the most troublesome record. Ma Haud suddenly stopped and looked around with a guilty conscience. The young police officer beside him quickly said, Ma'ili, your sister-in-law is not here. Ma Haud awkwardly cleared his throat and coughed twice, saying in a deep voice, Kick those annoying reporters out! What are you waiting for? Go. Yes. Ma Howd straightened his chest and walked to the blocked scene with his head held high. He hadn't shouted this sentence for a long time. It was even more satisfying than eating a bowl of sour plum sauce, shaved ice. Ma Ili, you're here. The police officer who blocked the scene quickly saluted at this time. Tell me the situation. Ma Howd nodded and ordered casually. The police officer quickly said, the deceased should have fallen from a high altitude. As for the location, it needs to be checked. The body was found by the community's janitor, Auntie. The identity of the deceased has been found. He is a resident of this building on the 12th floor. The deceased is a male, 18 years old, named Gu Jiajia, a fresh graduate of No. 3 high school in the city. Why is he a student again? Ma Howd was stunned. He deeply frowned and glanced at the scene. On the stone bench, not far away, a couple in pajamas hugged each other and cried bitterly. Who are they to the deceased? Oh, they are the parents of the deceased. The police officer opened the small book. The man is Gu Feng, the woman is Shen Meihuan. Chapter 331. Ma Howd gave some tissues to Shen Meihuan and then looked at Gu Feng, who was barely able to keep calm. Hello, Mr. Gu, I'm Ma Howd. Do you mind if I ask you something? Go ahead. Gu Feng took a deep breath and answered reluctantly. Ma Howd nodded. When was the last time you saw Gu Jiajia? Gu Feng thought for a while and said in a hoarse voice, last night about 11:30. I chatted with him before going to bed. But I didn't expect. Does your son have any enemies recently? Or is he behaving strangely? Ma Howd had to pretend that he didn't see his son's expression and continued asking. Gu Feng shook his head and said, My son is very sensible and never causes trouble outside. He is also very filial. Recently, there is nothing unusual about him. Did you give your son a phone? Ma Howd continued to ask. Yes, I did. Gu Feng quickly said, It's the latest model. I gave it to him during the summer vacation because he did well in the exam last semester. I went with him to buy it. Well, Mr. Gu, we can't confirm the cause of your son's death yet, Ma Howd said slowly, but I want to take your son's phone back and have a look. And we'll also go to your son's room. Also, I have to remind you that the forensic doctor may dissect your son's body if necessary. I hope you can cooperate with him. What? Dissect my son's body? Hearing this, Shen Meihuan cried sadly, My son is like this, and you still want to dissect his body? Ma Howd had to say, Madam, don't you want to know whether your son committed suicide or something else happened to him? Shen Meihuan suddenly had no idea. She could only lean on her husband's chest and cry bitterly. Ma Howd shook his head. He knew that he couldn't get anything out of the couple for the time being. He walked aside impatiently and lit a cigarette, waiting for the certificate holder. At this time, a figure came into his sight. A slightly thin figure walked away from the crowd with a hat on his head. Ma Howd subconsciously wanted to go up, but he heard a policeman's voice. Ma Howd, the certificate holder is coming. Oh, okay, I'll be right there. Ma Howd had already lost sight of the figure, but there were still many onlookers in front of him. Officer Ma was immediately dissatisfied. Didn't I ask you to evacuate the onlookers? Where is he? 2 steamed buns, 1 for home and 1 for takeout. Okay. In front of the bun shop, the boss, who was kneading dough with his head down, answered casually. But soon he raised his head. When he saw the customer, he smiled in surprise. Luo, Chiao, it's you. Long time no. Come, sit inside. Do your business. Brother Chin had taken over the bun shop for some time since his parents left. Luocho glanced at old Chen's son, who seemed to be more skillful with his hands, smiled, and walked into the bun shop. It seemed that the shop had regained some popularity compared to when old Chin had just left. Long time no see, why are you back today? Old Chen's son put a towel on his shoulder, wiped his sweat, and sat opposite Luocho. I suddenly remembered, so I came. By the way, I went back to the old house to clean it. Luocho said softly, "How have you been recently?" "Alas!" Old Chen's son smiled and replied, "Same as always, but I'm probably more comfortable than before." Old Chen's son made tea and said slowly, "People think they are not used to it at first, but in fact they just can't accept it. But if they accept it, it's not bad. It's not bad to change the way of life." He looked at the old neighbors who had already accepted the taste of his bun, smiled and said, "Recently I began to understand some things. My dad has been insisting on staying here. I think he has his own reasons." Old Chen's son's eyes gradually became gentle. His smile was very nice, just like the taste of the bun shop's bun. Human touch. "It tastes good." Luocho opened a fresh bun, tasted it, and praised. Old Chen's son smiled honestly. "That's good. I was afraid that you would say it didn't taste good. You're so scary when you're not smiling, just like a little old man. I don't know when you'll say something scary and you're so serious." Luocho sighed and didn't say anything. At this time, another customer came to the bun shop. She stood in front of the shop and whispered something. Old Chen's son glanced at Luocho. "This little girl is here again." Luocho turned his head and saw a woman wearing a mask and a hat. "Little girl?" Her voice doesn't sound loud. Old Chen's son nodded. It should be a little girl. In the last 1 or 2 months, she came back once every 1 or 2 days. Every time, she would buy a lot of buns. Old Chen's son shrugged, but she rarely talks. Every time she pays, she takes the things and leaves. She left again. This time, she seems to be in a hurry. After the little girl paid the bill, she lowered her head and hurriedly left. No one knew what she looked like. "Boss, leave the buns here first. I'll come back to get them later." Luocho suddenly stood up and said, "Oh, okay." In an alley in the old town, the little girl, carrying a big bag of buns, stuck close to the exit of the alley. She cautiously poked her head out and looked at the way she came. She seemed to be relieved. She patted her chest and turned around. She pulled down her mask and took a whiff of the buns in the bag. She smiled. "Does it smell good?" "Yes." The little girl answered without thinking, but she soon realized that something was wrong. Who was asking her? She abruptly turned around and saw the person who had appeared behind her without anyone noticing. She was very frightened and let out a soft cry of, "Ah." "Do I look scary?" Luocho looked at the little girl in front of him. It was Butterfly Monster Luo Dance. No. Butterfly Monster lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Boss Luo. Luocho smiled. "When did you change to eating buns?" "You didn't eat them before." Luo Dance raised her head and blinked. "It's not for me. It's for Little Black and the others." "Little Black?" "Yes." The so-called Little Black and the others didn't refer to anyone but a group of stray cats. In the courtyard of an abandoned house in a corner of the old town, the little butterfly monster was squatting on the ground. She peeled the buns in the bag and fed them to the stray cats that popped out from the bushes all over the courtyard. Looking at the kitten licking the butterfly monster's finger and making her smile, Luocho suddenly felt a little more comfortable. "Give me a bun." He squatted down and said softly, "They fed the cats like this." Chapter 332. This is Little Black, this is Little White, this is a flower, and this is cotton candy. This is honey, this is milk, and this... Listening to the little butterfly introducing the names of these stray cats as if they were family treasures, Boss Luo suddenly felt something was wrong. Chinese network the first names were fine, but why did the latter names become strange? Did they reveal something? "They seem to like you very much." Luo Dance blinked. Looking at these stray cats she had been feeding for a long time, she found that even if she was here, they would be closer to the club boss, a stranger. "Do you often come to the bun shop to patronize the shop's business?" Luocho picked up a stray cat and asked. "Because the shop's business doesn't seem to be very good," the little butterfly said gloomily, but she soon cheered up. "But the business is getting better recently." "Have you been working recently?" Thinking of this little butterfly as a monster, was so hungry that she had to wander the streets. It seemed that she would not use her monster power casually. It was easy to imagine where her money came from. Yes, the little butterfly nodded. I met a nice sister some time ago. She took me in and let me work in her shop. But without her permission, I can't tell you her name. It's okay. Luaccio smiled, but then he heard the sound of stomach rumbling. This little butterfly demon had been in the society for some time and had probably learned a lot. Her ears turned red on the spot. She lowered her head in embarrassment, touched her stomach, and smiled awkwardly. Drink. The little butterfly looked at the bottle of honey in Boss Luo's hand in surprise, blinking her eyes. I bought it when I just came out. Luaccio opened the bottle cap. It should be the same brand as last time. I think you can drink it. Little Butterfly suddenly remembered that the boss also gave her a bottle of honey last time, but she was too hungry and rushed to drink it. She directly bit the bottle open, and her face couldn't help but turn redder. But he couldn't resist the fragrance of the honey when the lid was opened. Thus, the little butterfly took the bottle and blew into it. After a while, the entire bottle was emptied. She licked her lips in satisfaction. Sister Long said not to let me drink too much honey. She said something like going too far is as bad as not going far enough. I've only been drinking milk recently. Sister Long. Boss Luo couldn't help but smile. Only then did she realize that she seemed to have accidentally said something. The little butterfly immediately covered her mouth and said pitifully, "You didn't hear anything, okay?" I think I know who this Sister Long you're talking about is. Luaccio gently shook his head. Don't mind it. Ah. The little butterfly nodded, not fully understanding. So be it. Luaccio greeted her. Originally, he only wanted to see how the little butterfly was doing on a whim. Now that he understood, he didn't want to continue disturbing her life. Ah, wait. Money. No need. Looking at the back of Luaccio slowly leaving the deserted yard, the little butterfly suddenly shouted, "Boss, will we meet again?" She didn't know why she asked this, but apparently she got the answer. "Don't you know where I am?" Luaccio whispered. "If you want to find me, you can come here at any time." Seeing him disappear, the little butterfly lowered her head and glanced at the empty bottle in her hand. She thought for a while, suddenly screwed the bottle cap and put it into her bag. Luo Dance squatted down again and touched the stray cats. She said softly, "I tell you, this boss is actually a good person." Suddenly, the little butterfly's cell phone rang. "Excuse me, is this Miss Luo? We're from Chaoyang Cram School. Your application has been approved. If it's convenient, please come here in a day or two to pay the tuition fee and get the materials. Then you can start classes." Okay. It seemed that every time she met this boss, something good would happen to her. The little butterfly smiled, and even the wind calmed down. Just like that, 2 days passed. Shin Mei Huan sat alone in her son's room. She didn't speak or eat for a whole day. Her husband, Gufeng, came in with a bowl of porridge and said softly, "Eat something." I can't eat." Shen Meihuan looked at her son's photo for a whole day. On the glass of the photo frame, there were drops of tears. Some were dry, some were wet, and some seemed to have just dropped. Gufeng sighed and sat down. He put his arm around his wife's shoulder and closed his eyes, saying in a hoarse voice, "Jiajia can't bear to see you like this." "He can't bear to see me like this?" Shin Meihuan turned on the switch and sobbed. No, he can't bear to see me like this. Tell me, did I do something wrong?" Her husband was speechless and could only sigh. Shen Meihuan cried, "Gufeng, did we push our son too hard? Did we do anything wrong?" "I don't know." Gufeng said sadly, "Maybe I didn't really take responsibility as a father. We never understood Jiajia's real thoughts." It's me. Shan Meihuan suddenly stood up and beat her chest vigorously. She said sadly, "It's all my fault. I shouldn't push him. I shouldn't be so strict to him. I thought it was good for him. It's me. It's me. Seeing that his wife couldn't control herself and was knocking her head against the wall, Gu Feng was shocked. He hugged her from behind and shouted, "Calm down! Is it useful to do this? Are you planning to leave me alone in the end?" Xin Meihuan suddenly stopped. She covered her face with her hands and sat down, crying, "How will Gu Feng live in the future?" "I don't know how." Gu Feng let out a long sigh. All of a sudden, there were only 2 people left in this house. It was cold and cheerless. How were they going to spend the next few days? "It's suicide." Ma Ili was stunned. He looked at the autopsy report brought by Old Chin from the forensic department and frowned. "Old Chin, is it confirmed?" Old Chin said indifferently, "Living people can lie, but corpses can't. Unless you think I'm wrong." "That's not what I meant." Mahoud laughed awkwardly, and then said seriously, "But including this one, this is the 5th one. All of them are suicides. Don't you think it's really F***king weird?" Old Chin was silent for a while and then said coldly, "I have to go back to work. My work is finished after the autopsy. Forensic doctors can only judge the physical condition of the deceased, but we can't make a conclusion about the mental condition of the deceased." "Mental condition?" Mahoud was stunned. Old Chin said indifferently, "Although it's not a fatal wound, there are many scars in different shapes on the deceased's body. Some of them were even caused by sharp weapons. If the child was just an ordinary student, he wouldn't have so many old scars." "You mean?" Mahoud nodded. "Domestic violence." "That's your job." Mahoud couldn't help but frown as he watched this guy leave his office. Mahoud couldn't help murmuring, "Damn it!" Of course, there was something even worse. The 5 victims, including Gu Jiajia, were all students of Chaoyang Cram School. After smoking one cigarette after another, Mahoud finally filled the new ashtray with ash. Then he resolutely picked up the phone. "Hello, Lao Lu." "Mahoud, how can you talk to your boss like this? I don't want to talk to you about this." Mahoud hurriedly said, "Director, I want to open a case and investigate the suicide cases. Do you have any evidence? The 5th victim. What else do you want?" "All right." Chapter 333. After pressing the doorbell, Mahoud saw that it was Gu Feng who opened the door. "Gu Feng." Obviously, Gu Feng was surprised to see Officer Ma. "Officer Ma, what's up?" "Oh, nothing. I just have a few small questions that I want to ask. Is it convenient for you?" Mahoud smiled. Gu Feng nodded and let Mahoud in. As soon as they sat down, Gu Feng said, "My wife just fell asleep. Let's keep our voices down." Mahoud nodded. "How is your wife?" Gu Feng smiled bitterly. "How is she? I haven't eaten or slept for the past few days. It wasn't easy for me to finally fall asleep because my body was so tired that I collapsed from exhaustion." "My condolences." Gu Feng pinched his eyebrows, looking tired. "Officer Ma, you said you wanted to ask me something. What is it? By the way, when can my son's body be brought here?" Mahoud said coldly, "Mr. Gu, it seems that you are in a hurry to bring Gu Jiajia's body here." Gu Feng was stunned. He frowned and said, "Officer Ma, I don't understand what you mean by that. I can't let my son lie in that cold place all the time. The medical examiner's report is here." Mahoud said calmly, "Combined with the traces we collected on the rooftop of your building, the conclusion is that your son committed suicide." Gu Feng sighed and said nothing. Mahoud continued, "But we found a lot of scars on your son's body. Some of them were bruises, old and new. Some were even caused by sharp weapons. Do you know anything about them?" Gu Feng paused and asked in surprise, "What happened? Why are there wounds on my son's body?" "That's why I'm here to ask you. Mr. Gu?" Mahoud said indifferently, "Your son doesn't live on campus. Didn't you find any scars on his body?" Gu Feng shook his head. "I really don't know. Perhaps he fought with someone outside without telling us, but he didn't dare to tell us. Now it seems that this son of mine is indeed hiding a lot of things from us. Why would he commit suicide? I'm afraid we never had a good idea of what he was thinking. Ma Haud said indifferently, Mr. Gu, you're still so calm even though your son just got into trouble. You're really strong. Gu Feng sighed and said, life still has to go on. Now that my wife is like this, if I continue to be passive, this family will fall apart. Ma Haud suddenly sneered and said, even if this family falls apart, doesn't Mr. Gu still have another family? Gu Feng was stunned. He turned his head and said, Officer Ma, what do you mean? Ma Haud originally wanted to snort coldly, but thinking that there was still a painful mother sleeping in the room, he lowered his voice and said, you still have a mistress outside. Moreover, she just gave birth to a son for you. He's not even 3 years old, right? You. Gu Feng widened his eyes and said angrily, you. Ma Haud said, Mr. Gu, now the citizen's information is very complete. It won't take a long time to find out what you want. Your identity is written in the father's certificate of your youngest son's birth. It's very easy to find out in our system. Keep your voice down. My wife doesn't know about this. Gu Feng looked nervous and looked at the door of the room with a guilty conscience. Officer Ma, even if I have another woman outside, it's nothing. We're all men. First, it's not a big deal to make a mistake. Ma Haud sneered and said, Gu Jiajie is not your biological son. He's the child of your current wife after she remarried. For so many years, she didn't give birth to another child for you, so you found another woman to give birth to your child, right? Officer Ma. Gu Feng was also angry and said in a low voice, this is my personal business. It's my family business. Do you police even care about this? What? Even if it's a civil case, shouldn't it be under the police's jurisdiction? Ma Haud said indifferently, and what if it's not a civil case but a criminal case? I don't understand what you're talking about. Gu Feng snorted. Ma Haud said in a low voice, Gu Feng, now I suspect that you have a habit of abusing Gu Jiajie, which led to his mental instability and suicide. So I want to ask you to assist in the investigation. You. Gu Feng stood up and said angrily, you're slandering me. Ma Haud said indifferently, Mr. Gu Feng, now the identification technology is very advanced. Even if we find a knife that matches your son's wound, we have reason to believe that there's domestic violence here. Of course, if you need a search warrant, I can give it to you right away. Don't. Gu Feng panicked. Officer Ma, what do you want to do? I just want to hear the truth. Ma Haud stared at him. He was used to interrogating criminals. His eyes were like the immovable Wisdom King, which was very scary, the truth. Gu Feng was in a cold sweat and lowered his head. I admit that I did beat him, but I really don't know why he committed suicide. You don't suspect me, do you? Tell me, why did you beat him? Gu Feng sighed. Officer Ma, he's not my biological son. I have a lot of work pressure, and sometimes I can't control myself. But I promise I didn't beat him too much. I just beat him a few times, and he would stop soon. I also blame myself, so I bought a lot of things for him. A few times? You've already used a knife, and you still want to be gentle? Ma Haud sneered. Gu Feng was frightened. It was just an accident. I didn't expect that he would suddenly contradict me. I was so angry that I beat him. Fortunately, it's just a small injury. Ma Haud was angry. You beat a child with a knife. How dare you say it's just a small injury? If he's not your biological son, then isn't he your son? You scumbag. Officer Ma, I can sue you for what you just said. Gu Feng narrowed his eyes. Suit yourself. Ma Haud snorted. Didn't I fill my desk with complaints that day? Mr. Gu Feng, since you admit that you have the habit of abusing your son, please come with me now. We suspect that your son committed suicide because of your long-term domestic violence. Suddenly, there was a sound of a cup falling on the ground. Shan Meihuan woke up and stood in front of the door like a wooden chicken. Meihuan. Gu Feng was frightened. Shan Meihuan hesitated and asked, Is what you said true? Gu Feng hurriedly said, Mei Huan, listen to me. It's not what you think. Don't listen to this policeman. I heard it. Shen Mei Huan rushed over. I heard it. You bastard. What did you do to my son? You bastard. Bastard. Give me back my son. Give me back my son. Bastard. Bastard. Seeing that Shen Mei Huan kept beating him, Gu Feng suddenly pushed her away. He gasped and looked at his scratched arm, saying fiercely, Are you crazy? So what if I beat him? Can't I beat him as his father? All these years, who was the one who raised you? Whatever you want, I will give it to you. I'm also the one who got you this job. If it weren't for me, you would still be a farmer in the countryside. But you, after so many years, you still haven't laid an egg for me. Do you have the responsibility of being a wife? Ma, Hao didn't want to see this kind of family affairs. He grabbed Gu Feng's arm and said calmly, Mr. Gu, please go there now. Don't pull me. Gu Feng glared at him. Humph, I can walk by myself. Mind your own business. After a long time, Shen Mei Huan moved. She didn't remember when Gu Feng was taken away. She just sat there for a long time as if she had lost her soul. Suddenly, she seemed to have heard a noise outside the door. She rushed to the door and opened it. Jiajie, you're here. But there was no one outside. Jiajie, where are you? Shen Mei Huan walked out of the house in a daze. She walked downstairs and looked at the community. She always felt that her son was still somewhere, but he didn't come to her. Walking out of the house barefoot, Shen Mei Huan walked alone on the street. As she walked, she seemed to have walked into a place that was very quiet and cool. Then there was a guy wearing a clown mask. It was a very strange place. Miss, what do you want? Anything is okay. Shen Mei Huan was absent-minded and said, subconsciously, Son, give my dead son back to me. Give it back to me. Miss, the price of resurrecting the dead is too high. Do you really need it? The man asked calmly. Moreover, even if you can resurrect him, he may not be the son you know. No matter what, no matter what. I'll give it all. As long as my dead son can come back. As long as he can come back. As you wish. The man said softly. Jiajie, Jiajie. Shen Mei Huan suddenly woke up. The moment she woke up, she found that she was still in the living room of her own home, as if it was just a dream. Shen Mei Huan smiled bitterly. Maybe it was just an illusion because she missed her son too much. Once again, she walked into her son's room. Thinking about how she was going to spend her days in the future, she couldn't help but burst into tears. But the moment she opened the door, she was stunned. She saw her son sitting on the edge of the bed. His eyes were open, and he was not moving at all. Yes, he was sitting there. His eyes could blink. Everyone was alive. It's true. Shen Mei Huan rushed to her son's side and hugged him tightly, but she found that his body was cold. He couldn't speak. To be continued. Chapter 334. Even if he is resurrected, he may not be the son you know. Shen Mei Huan began to understand the meaning of this sentence. She couldn't hear her son's heartbeat from his chest, but he could walk. His body was cold, but his muscles were as soft as ordinary people. He didn't speak, but responded to others' words. He didn't know how to think, and his behavior seemed to be instinctive. The living dead. Shen Mei Huan didn't know when this terrible idea came into her mind. But no matter what, you are my son. Shen Mei Huan held her son's face with both hands and whispered, You are my flesh and blood. No matter what you become. His son's eyes suddenly blinked. He seemed to understand, but also seemed to not understand. Perhaps it was just a biological reaction. But Shen Mei Huan felt that her son was talking to her. He just didn't adapt to this state for a while. It must be so, it must be so. Shen Mei Huan said softly. He must have hit his head when he fell down. It must be so, it must be so. Don't be afraid, my child, I'm here. Are you hungry? Look at you, you're so dirty. Do you want to drink water? She felt that she was back to the time when her son was very young, and she had to worry about his daily life. Shin Mei-hwan held her son in her arms and lay on the bed. She gently stroked his head and said, "Sleep, sleep." Suddenly, Shin Mei-hwan heard some sounds, the sound of the door opening. Her husband, Gu Feng, came back. Shin Mei-hwan suddenly sat up, hugged her son tightly, and said nervously, "Don't be afraid, Mom is here. Don't be afraid. I won't let this guy hit you again, no, no, no." Gu Feng closed the door, changed his shoes, glanced at the living room, and finally sat down. After a while, Gu Feng shouted, "I'm back." He was very upset. It was not enough to describe his mood. It took him a lot of effort to get out of the police station after pulling a lot of strings. Gu Feng also asked the lawyer, and even if he was really prosecuted, he could still fight a lawsuit. This news was the only thing that made him feel slightly more at ease. However, there was another thing that he had to do with his current wife. When he married Shin Mei-hwan, he was just a nobody in the city. Although this woman had brought a son into the family, she had also brought him some luck. In recent years, he had also contracted a small factory, and his living conditions had improved a lot. Naturally, his work had also become busier. More importantly, Shin Mei-hwan also had a share in the factory. "Mei-hwan, are you there? Mei-hwan?" Gu Feng pinched his forehead and looked tired. "Can we talk about it? I admit that I did hit Jiajia, but I was wrong. However, I really didn't expect him to be like this. Tell me, which child hasn't been beaten before? When I was young, wasn't I also beaten up by my father? I think both of us are at fault. I hit him, but you didn't take good care of your son either, right? Beautiful? Beautiful? Are you listening?" Suddenly, a sharp pain appeared at the back of Gu Feng's head. He only felt a buzzing sound in his head, and then the world spun, and then he lost consciousness. He directly lay down on the sofa. Behind him, Shin Mei-hwan was holding a rolling pin in both hands. "I won't let you hit my son again." Shin Mei-hwan suddenly woke up and threw away the rolling pin in her hand. She knew that Gu Feng was just in a coma, and she didn't really want to do the most extreme thing. Shin Mei-hwan suddenly rushed into the room, packed up her things, and then took her son out of the house. She couldn't let others know that her dead son was alive again. She thought that she needed to hide her son for the time being. "Ma-yi, is it appropriate to let Gu Feng go?" the young policeman asked. Ma Howd, who was in a bad mood, stared at his subordinate. "What do you think? I just scared him. Do you really think that we should detain him like this? Even if we know that Gu Feng hit him, what can we do? This is a criminal self-report case. But where is the victim? He is still lying in Old Chin's house. Do you want him to stand up and report the case? It's really annoying." The young policeman couldn't help but hit his right palm with his left fist. Ma Howd frowned. Besides, even if Gu Jiajia chose this extreme way because of domestic violence, there's still one thing that I can't let go of. "Ma-yi, you mean the cram school?" 5 suicides. All of them were students of this cram school. Ma Howd nodded. "We didn't notice the first one at the beginning. Then the second one also committed suicide. Then the third one, the fourth one, and now." At this time, another subordinate came in with a file. "Ma-yi, the deleted message on Gu Jiajia's mobile phone has been recovered by the technician. There is a message sent by the victim before he committed suicide, but it was sent by a chat software. This kind of software is casually registered. We have asked the operator, but there is no information." Ma Howd quickly took it and glanced at it. 9 o'clock. The usual place. Teacher? Thinking about it, Ma Howd suddenly stared at his subordinate, saying abruptly, "Do you still remember the mathematics, physics, and chemistry in high school?" "What?" The young police officer suddenly had a bad premonition. "Hey, you go to class." "What? My, do you think I am suitable?" "You are not suitable, but am I suitable?" Ma Howd rolled his eyes. The servant girl took out a globe from the utility room. At this moment, the club boss was rotating the globe. On the map of the globe, there were dense red dots. Of course, these red dots could only be seen by Luocho himself. Yi could only know how many points she knew by the places where the customers came from. But Luocio was different. As long as he was close to the critical gate and stayed on it, he could clearly know which points had been opened. He rotated slowly, as if he didn't want to stop. Master, Shun Meihuan took her son away and knocked her husband out before leaving. It is difficult for the society to accept a dead person appearing again. Luo Qiu said slowly. It's normal that she doesn't want others to know about it. It's also predictable. Luocio couldn't help but recall this transaction. This woman's wish was so strong that she didn't need any consultation at all. Luocio didn't even say anything, and the transaction was completed. He shook his head and patted the globe with his palm, stopping the spinning sphere. At this moment, a gust of cold wind suddenly blew open the door of the club, accompanied by a cloud of black smoke. The smoke finally formed in front of Luocio, and he heard a slightly hoarse and gloomy woman's voice. Black Soul 18 greets the new master. Are you the Black Soul envoy that Yu Yi said didn't dare to come because of some things? Luocio nodded and began to look at the old staff of the club. Black Soul number 18 took off the hood of her hoodie, revealing a rather frightening appearance. She had an aged face, a big nose that resembled a hook, and silver gray but sparse hair that resembled weeds. She looked just like an old witch in a fairy tale. Yes, I am. Black Soul 18 made a gloomy laugh. Boss Luo had seen different forms of things recently, so he wasn't too surprised by Black Soul 18's appearance. He just nodded. You've seen me before. Work as you used to. Black Soul number 18 nodded respectfully. She began to look around and found that there was not only the club girl she knew, but also another strange woman. She shouldn't be the Black Soul envoy. This is Miss Qin. She will live here temporarily. I see. She intended to nod to Qin Chiyu, but found that Qin Chiyu didn't even open her eyes. She had some thoughts in her mind, but she didn't show it. Instead, she curiously stared at the other one. How should she describe it? A guy who was hanging on the ceiling in a rather delicate posture. This is Taiyanzi. He doesn't have a number now. Luocio said casually, well, as you saw, he has some special hobbies. Black Soul number 18 nodded. She just remembered that he had some special hobbies. Anyway, she knew what the so-called special hobbies were from his appearance. Taiyanzi, who hadn't spoken for a long time, now slightly raised his head, looking at the servant girl whose face was as delicate as jade, and then lowered his head again. Really, it's not like this. Taiyanzi didn't have the thought of embarking on a prosperous Black Soul life. Now he just felt that his Black Soul life was full of stains. But the communication between Black Souls was very little. In the past, one Black Soul was in charge of one area, so there was very little time for communication. Black Soul 18 just knew him, but didn't want to pay attention to him. Instead, she stepped forward, turning over her palm, and several white cards appeared. Master, this is the information about the potential customer that I collected during this period. These were originally collected by her to congratulate the appearance of her new master, but before she had time to present them, Yi assigned another task, so she didn't present them. Now that there was a chance, she would present it at once, striving for a good opportunity to perform well. After all, the location of the new critical door hadn't been decided yet. Although the servant girl said that, as a servant, she shouldn't take the initiative to mention it, but as a servant, she should strive to show her seriousness in her work in front of her master. To be continued. Chapter 335. Luo Qiu put the information of Black Soul number 18 casually on the table after receiving it. Black Soul 18 didn't show a disappointed look. She just waited for the order, quietly. She didn't plan to do anything before she figured out the new master's mood. Although all the staff in the club had the same loyalty to the boss, the Black Soul envoys and Miss Servant Girl were not the same. If one had to name it, there was a hierarchy in the club that was not officially stated, but was abnormally strict. The one with the highest authority was naturally the club's owner. and there were many things worth pondering about. Anything else? Luaccio asked softly. No, nothing else. Black Soul 18 answered subconsciously. Then she looked at the new master confusedly. But master, I should just put the information here. Luaccio said indifferently, I'll take action when it's appropriate. Ye will remember your performance. Well, he looked at Black Soul 18 again and smiled. If you want to go back to your previous place, you can go back. If you want to have a rest, you can wander around as you like. This. Black Soul 18 couldn't figure out the new master's meaning. Wasn't he too lenient? Master means you can act as you like. Miss Servant Girl said indifferently, Black Soul 18, have you forgotten the autonomy the club gave you after so many years? That's not what I mean. Black Soul number 18 quickly lowered her head. She deliberated over her words and said, Then I'll wander around nearby. I won't relax myself. I'll remember my duty. If there's a suitable boss, I'll present it to him at once. After that, Black Soul number 18 stepped back slowly, facing the boss of the club. She walked away step by step until she reached the gate of the club. Then she turned around and left. Looking at this scene, Luaccio thought for a while and suddenly asked, Yi, are there more Black Soul envoys like this? Before Black Soul 18 was transformed, she was a witch in the Middle Ages. The servant girl knew what her master was wondering about, so she answered softly, Some habits have been preserved since then. Luaccio smiled and stretched. If that's the case, I think if I was in the Middle Ages, I would probably be the most incompetent monarch. I once heard from the former boss that it took him 100 years to open the critical door. The servant girl said indifferently, but the master only took less than 5 months. Probably luck. Luaccio shook his head. He grabbed the information on the table and went upstairs. Miss Maid also continued her daily work. Chin-Chiyu was still meditating. She didn't say anything and had forgotten everything. Me. Did no one think of putting me down? Oh, right. Tae-Inzi was still shaking his body, hoping that someone would respond to his request. In the end, he still went on his own. Did he indulge these little bastards too much? Ma Haud squinted his eyes and stared at the big recruitment sign of Choyong Cram School. He threw away the cigarette, but in his mouth, and stamped it out. He took a deep breath and went at the building where the cram school was located, looking like a solemn and stirring wind blowing in his face. Today, Ma Ijong learned from another good brother. He wore a khaki-colored windbreaker and a hat of the same color. You have a cram school for adults, right? Aye. Ma Haud looked back sneakily at the front desk. Then he turned around and said, I saw it on the billboard downstairs. Sir. The receptionist looked at this uncle in surprise. She seemed to think of something and smiled. Sir, you want to enroll in the cram school for adults, right? Sure. Keep your voice down. Ma Haud made a gesture of silence. Sir, it's better for you to relax. The receptionist still smiled. Sir, it's amazing that you are still working hard for the adult college entrance exam at your age. I'm starting to admire you. You must be a very great person. Am I? Ma Haud cleared his throat. He felt that girls were good at talking. So he slightly closed his beer belly and straightened his chest. Yes, many people say that about me. Of course. The receptionist was so charming that Ma Haud paid the tuition fee. When he came back to his senses, he was already sitting in one of the classrooms of the cram school. Damn it, Ma Haud looked around at the guys sitting in front of him. Some of them were in their 20s, while some were in their 30s. He did see some who were about his age. Ma Ijong casually flipped through the information that was sent to him. In less than 3 minutes, he had already flipped through a book. Who the hell knew what he was reading? X-axis? Y-axis? Z-axis? Just as Ma Ili was stupefied and listening to the old man on the podium, he suddenly felt something poke him in the back. Who is it? Ma Haud, who was used to the rough voice, turned around impatiently and saw a woman wearing a headscarf and sunglasses. He was stunned and said, You are... The other party lowered his glasses slightly and winked at him. At this moment, the private police officer couldn't hold onto his textbook and almost dropped it on the ground. He almost jumped up on the spot. Sister-in-law, sister-in-law. But at this moment, the woman in the back seat covered his mouth and gestured for him to keep quiet. She lowered her voice and said, "Sweep your head. Keep your voice down." Mahoud opened his eyes wide and nodded. Why is Rin Xiling here? What the hell is she doing here? He looked back at the old man on the podium and sat up straight. However, he leaned back and covered his mouth with his textbook. When did you get here? Why didn't I see you? When did I come? Of course, I came earlier than you. You can't see? Isn't it because an old bastard like you was coaxed by the receptionist's little sister and sat down without even knowing your own name? I'm observing, investigating. Do you understand? Don't talk nonsense. Wait, why are you here? Then why are you here? Be honest. Sister-in-law, did you find something? Mahoud sighed. Who was the woman in the back seat? She was his sister-in-law, the cancer of the industry. Rin Xiling being here seemed to be out of his expectation. But thinking about it, it seemed to suit her personality. As for the reason, Mahoud already knew. I've been here for 2 days, and I didn't find anything. Damn it. The tuition fee of this cram school is ripping me off. Rin Xiling shook her head. My tuition fee will be reimbursed by the informant fee. Otherwise, I'll have to eat dirt this month. You know what? It doesn't matter if I'm hungry, but can you bear to let my baby son be hungry? I'm the only one making money to support the family, Brother Ma. I've never seen such a shameless person like you. So the old man on the podium patted the ruler in his hand and said in a deep voice, the bearded man in the yellow windbreaker, be quiet. Don't you know what the classroom discipline is? Mahoud couldn't help but think of the dark and humiliating history of being ruled by the teacher for decades. Smoke less. Although the cram school was over, Mahoud and Rin Xiling didn't leave. Instead, they came to the rooftop of this building. Mahoud tried to persuade them, but it seemed to be useless. He was also addicted to smoking, so he simply lit one. How about exchanging information? Rin Xiling suddenly said, You go first. Mahoud rolled his eyes and said, We found from the mobile phone of the 5th victim that he had an appointment with someone here before the accident. He called that person a teacher. I suspect that person is the teacher of this cram school. What a coincidence! Rin Xiling was stunned. I also chatted up 2 hotheads and heard that there was a very mysterious teacher. Chatted up? Don't mind the details. Rin Xiling blinked. Don't you think I'm very charming? Sister Long, this is the big sister I met the other day. Chapter 336. Luaccio put the information of Black Soul number 18 casually on the table after receiving it. Black Soul number 18 didn't show a disappointed look, but waited for the order quietly. She didn't intend to do anything before she figured out the new master's mood. Although the loyalty of all the club's employees to the boss was the same, the way of loyalty between Black Soul Envoy and Miss Servant Girl was different. If one had to say, there was a hierarchy in the club that had never been officially stated, but it was extremely strict. The boss of the club was the supreme one, and below there were many things worth pondering. Is there anything else? Luaccio asked softly. No. Black Soul number 18 answered subconsciously, and then looked at the new master confusedly. But master, now I should just put the information here. Luaccio said indifferently, I'll take action when it's appropriate. You will keep your performance in mind. Well, he looked at Black Soul number 18 again and smiled. If you want to go back to your previous place, you can go back. If you want to have a rest, you can wander around as you like. This Black Soul number 18 was more confused about the new master's meaning. Wasn't he a bit too lenient? Master means you should act as you like. Miss Servant Girl said indifferently, Black Soul number 18, Have you forgotten the self-awareness that the club gave you after so many years? I don't mean that. Black soul number 18 lowered her head quickly and considered the appropriate words. Then I'll wander around nearby. I dare not relax myself and will always remember my duty. If there's a suitable customer, I'll present it to him at once. After that, Black soul number 18 stepped back slowly, facing the boss of the club, and walked away step by step. She didn't turn around until she left the door of the club. Looking at this scene, Luocio thought for a while and suddenly said, Yuyi, are there more Black soul envoys like this? Black soul number 18 was a witch in the Middle Ages before she was transformed. Miss Servant Girl knew what her master was confused about, so she answered softly, Some habits have been kept since then. Luocio smiled and stretched himself. Well, I think I'm the most inactive monarch in the Middle Ages. I heard from the former boss that it took him 100 years to open the critical door. Miss Servant Girl said indifferently, but Master only took less than 5 months. Maybe I'm lucky. Luocio shook his head, grabbing the information of the customer on the table, and walked upstairs. Miss Servant Girl continued her daily work. Qin Chiyu was still meditating. She didn't say anything and had forgotten everything. Me. Didn't anyone think of putting me down? Oh, right. Tainzi was shaking his body vigorously, hoping that someone could respond to his request. But he still went himself. Did he indulge these little bastards too much? Ma Haod squinted his eyes and stared at the big recruitment sign of Chuyang Cram School. He threw away the cigarette, but in his mouth, and stamped it out. He took a deep breath and went up the building where the cram school was located, looking like a solemn and stirring wind blowing in his face. Today, Ma Ijong learned from another good brother. He wore a khaki-colored windbreaker and a hat of the same color. You have a cram school for adults, right? At the front desk, Mahoud glanced behind and then turned around. I saw it on the billboard downstairs. Sir. The receptionist looked at this uncle in surprise. She seemed to think of something and smiled. Sir, you want to enroll in the cram school for adults, right? Sure. Keep your voice down. Mahoud made a gesture of silence. Sir, it's better for you to relax. The receptionist was still smiling. Sir, you are still working hard for the adult college entrance exam at your age. That's a great thing. I'm starting to admire you. You must be a great person. Is it? Mahoud cleared his throat. He felt that girls nowadays were really good at talking. He slightly closed his beer belly and straightened his chest. Yes, many people say that about me. Of course. The receptionist was so charming that she paid the tuition fee in a daze. When she came back to her senses, she was already sitting in one of the classrooms of the cram school. Damn it, Mahoud looked around. Some of them were in their 20s, and some were in their 30s. He saw some who were about the same age as him. Ma Ijong casually flipped through the information that was sent to him. In less than 3 minutes, he had already flipped through a book. Who the hell knew what he was reading? X-axis? Y-axis? Z-axis? Just as Ma-E was stupefied and listening to the old man on the podium, he suddenly felt something poking his back. Who is it? Ma-Haud turned around impatiently. He saw a woman wearing a headscarf and sunglasses. He was stunned. You are... The woman slightly lowered her glasses and winked at him. Officer Ma almost lost his grip on his textbook and almost dropped it on the ground. He almost jumped up on the spot. Sister-in-law. Sister-in-law. But at this moment, the woman in the back seat covered his mouth and gestured for him to keep quiet. She lowered her voice and said, "Sweep your head. Keep your voice down." Ma had opened his eyes wide and nodded. The woman let go. Damn it, why is Rin Xiling here? He looked back at the old man on the podium and sat up straight. However, he leaned back and covered his mouth with his textbook. When did you get here? Why didn't I see you? When did I come? Of course, I came earlier than you. You can't see? Isn't it because you were coaxed by the receptionist's little sister and didn't even know your surname before sitting down? I'm observing, investigating. Do you understand? Don't talk nonsense. No, why are you here? Then why are you here? Be honest. Sister-in-law, did you find something? Mahoud sighed. Who was the woman in the back seat? She was known as the cancer of the industry, his sister-in-law. It was out of his expectation that Ren Xiling would be here, but after thinking about it, it seemed to suit her personality. As for the reason, Mahoud already knew. I've been here for 2 days and found nothing. Damn it. The tuition fee of this cram school is ripping me off. Ren Xiling shook her head. My tuition fee will be reimbursed by the informant fee. Otherwise, I'll have to eat dirt this month. You know what? It doesn't matter if I'm hungry, but can you bear to let my baby son be hungry? I'm the only one who makes money to support the family, Brother Ma. I've never seen such a shameless person like you. So the old teacher on the podium patted the ruler in his hand and said in a low voice, the bearded man in the yellow windbreaker, Be quiet. Don't you know what the classroom discipline is? Mahoud couldn't help but think of the decades of darkness and humiliation under the rule of the teacher. Smoke less. Although the cram school was over, Mahoud and Ren Xiling didn't leave but came to the rooftop of the building. Mahoud tried to persuade them, but it seemed to be useless. He was also addicted to smoking, so he simply lit one. How about exchanging information? Ren Xiling suddenly said, You go first. Mahoud rolled his eyes and said, We found from the 5th victim's mobile phone that he had an appointment with someone here before the accident. He called that person teacher. I suspect it's the teacher of this cram school. What a coincidence. Ren Xiling was stunned. I also chatted up 2 hotheads and heard that there was a mysterious teacher. Chatted up? Don't mind the details. Ren Xiling blinked. Don't you think I'm very charming? Sister Long, this is the big sister I met the other day. Chapter 337. What's the rumor about the teacher? Mahoud frowned. Ren Xiling said, It said that one of the teachers in the cram school is very good. No matter how bad a student's grades are, as long as he is found, his grades will be improved immediately. Ren Xiling lowered her head and looked at the street under the building. It said that several students whose grades couldn't be saved improved by leaps and bounds because of this teacher. Mahoud was stunned. Since they came to this cram school, their grades should be improved, right? No. It said that they are not good at studying, but were forced by their parents to come here. They can't learn well. Ren Xiling thought for a while. I don't know if this is the case at the beginning. Mahoud nodded and suddenly said, I think I can go and find out the academic records of the previous victims. Then I'll check who the teachers of this cram school are. Ren Xiling nodded. Keep in touch. Mahoud nodded in agreement. Unexpectedly, Ren Xiling took out a stack of textbooks from her bag and put them in Mahoud's hand. Sir Ma was puzzled and asked, What are you doing? Homework. Ren Xiling said naturally, Helping me with my homework. I'm going to continue to come here, dear. Wait, why is it me? If not you, do you think it's me? Why did he seem to have heard of this sentence before? That's it. I have to go back. It's too late. My boss will nag me. You don't know how long-winded he is. You go back first. I'll check this woman's background. Long Shiro looked at Luo dance and said softly when the 2 people on the opposite rooftop left. The little butterfly demon who had seen the ability of this big sister dragon quickly nodded. With a light tap of her legs, she disappeared into the night. Long Shiro turned her eyes and murmured, What's wrong with this cram school? She quickly shook her head and easily jumped down from the tall building, landing in the small alley of the building. Soon after, Long Shiro saw a red car drive out. This Lord Long of the Demon Realm didn't even think about it and directly jumped onto the roof of the red car silently. The people shuttling on the road, the people driving the cars, and even the pedestrians on the road would not notice her existence. It was not difficult for her to distort the light that was projected on her. This woman drives so fast. Long Shiro looked at the cars that were overtaken constantly. She slowly squatted down and put her hand on the roof of the car. Soon she showed a more puzzled expression. First of all, she didn't think the little butterfly monster would lie to her. That was to say, the woman who drove the car did threaten Luo dance and saw through her background at a glance. However, this woman seemed to be just a human being. There is some weak aura in her body, but it's at most a healthy level. Long Shiro couldn't help but feel more puzzled. The aura in this woman's body was not so much from her own cultivation, but from somewhere. For example, she wore some jade magic tools with aura for a long time. Whether she is a human or a ghost, I'll know after I try. She believed that some instinctive reactions would never escape her eyes. Long Shiro gently tapped on the red car with her finger. At the same time, when Ren Xiling saw the red light in front of her, she thought that it was not appropriate to rush over, so she simply stepped on the brake. She had to obey the traffic rules occasionally. Sub-editor Rin suddenly smiled and took out her phone, intending to make a call while waiting for the red light. 120 seconds of red light. What a joke! But she soon found something wrong. The brake system seemed to be out of order. The car didn't intend to slow down at all and rushed straight through the intersection. After leaving that home, Shen Meihuan didn't know where to go with her son. She wanted to leave this place and find a place where no one knew her and take good care of her son, who had become like this. But she was worried about when her son would become a cold corpse again. She knew that the mysterious place must be somewhere in this city. If something were to happen to her, would that place help her again? Shen Meihuan couldn't help thinking of the strange contract, but she didn't regret it. Taking a deep breath, Shen Meihuan opened the door of the hotel. She knocked Gufeng out and didn't want to see the man who used to sleep with her, so she could only choose to rent a house outside temporarily. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a woman in a black dress walking out. She seemed to be going out. The uncle at the front desk ran up enthusiastically and said to the woman in the black dress, "Miss Blackwater, are you going out to buy food again?" Shen Meihuan didn't care too much. She went up the stairs and headed upstairs. While the conversation between the woman in the black dress and the uncle was still going on, the woman in the black dress suddenly asked, "Boss, when did this woman check in?" Around 5 or 6 p.m. The uncle thought for a moment and said, "What? Miss Blackwater, do you know her?" "No, I don't." The woman in the black dress said indifferently. She suddenly raised her head and looked at the ceiling of the hotel hall, muttering in her heart, "But there is a faint smell of corpse on her." There were many situations where a person would be contaminated by corpse. She couldn't figure out the woman's origin in the black dress. It seemed that this place was not a long-term residence after all, just as Blackwater, who had to take care of many small monsters, was considering whether to leave this place or not. The woman who had just climbed up the stairs rushed down and rushed to the uncle. She grabbed his arm nervously and asked, "Boss, what are you doing here? Have you seen my son?" "Your son?" The uncle was stunned and rolled his eyes. "Madam, we just met this afternoon. How can I know your son?" "I mean the one who came with me this afternoon." Shen Meihuan asked more eagerly. The uncle was stunned and blurted out, "Your son!" "I thought—" "Oh, nothing. The person you're talking about, I think I saw him walk out just now. I asked him where he was going, but he didn't answer me. He didn't say anything." "Thank you." Shen Meihuan loosened her hand and rushed out of the hotel. The uncle of the hotel was confused, but he found that Blackwater had disappeared without him noticing. Boss Luo didn't start reading the information inside immediately after playing with the information cards for a while. The information card slowly rotated in his palm. Suddenly, Luochio put them down. He stood up and waved his hand. On the sofa, near the window on the second floor of the club, a thick account book appeared out of thin air. Luochio couldn't help thinking about what kind of criteria the former boss used to choose the opening point of the critical door. These points seemed to be traceable. Then, were there places that the former boss deliberately didn't open? And why did he deliberately not open those places? For this reason, Luo Qiu tried to find some clues from the transaction history that was as numerous as the sand in the Ganges River. But just as he flipped to a certain page, his fingers stopped. Before the page was completely opened, Boss Luo suddenly raised his head and disappeared from the club in an instant. A strong sense of uneasiness caused him to act in this way. The next moment, Luo Qiu was standing on a pedestrian overpass somewhere in the city, watching a red car rush past him directly under the ground. Luo Qiu clearly saw that there was another person standing on the roof of the car. Chapter 338. Calm down, calm down. Rin Xiling forced herself to calm down. Although the brake system malfunction was a serious matter, it was not fatal, right? At this time, keep calm and don't step on the accelerator. She had rich experience on the road, so she pressed the button of the danger light and switched the car to the deceleration lane. Although her palms were sweating because of the close call, she still carefully observed the situation on the road. Don't be nervous, Rin Xiling. You see, the car is slowing down. Very good. Just like this. Just like this. Slowly, slowly. The car began to slow down in the deceleration lane. Long Shua, who had been observing, could not help but show a trace of surprise. She felt that the woman driving was really calm. Although she had seen her calm side in the face of danger, it was not what Long Shua wanted to see. Long Shua's finger gently tapped on the roof of the car again. If you are an ordinary person, I won't let you have an accident. If you are not an ordinary person, let me see what you can do. A loud roar was heard from the car's exhaust pipe. Ren Xiling looked at the speedometer that suddenly soared in disbelief. She opened her mouth, but couldn't say a word. When the car's acceleration reached a certain level, Ren Xiling finally realized that the danger was not far away, but closer. Damn, there was another red light in front of her, but it was not as good as the previous intersection. In front of her, there was a long line of cars. Ren Xiling quickly unfastened her seatbelt and reached out to open the door. But she did not expect that the door would not open. At this moment, the sound of breathing and heartbeat almost overlapped. Many things flashed through Ren Xiling's mind. Finally, she slowly closed her eyes. She could not escape, could not stop. She could only wait for the worst situation to come. She subconsciously stepped on the brakes to the end. Even though she knew that it was useless, she instinctively did not want to give up struggling before she lost consciousness. Suddenly, the car stopped. A strong inertia caused Ren Xiling's body to move forward. She opened her eyes abruptly and pushed the steering wheel hard to stop her inertia. When the car finally stopped, less than 10 centimeters away from the car in front of them, Ren Xiling seemed to have lost all her strength. She collapsed on the driver's seat and gasped for breath. He seemed to have returned to normal. After a while, Ren Xiling recovered from this nervous mood. The sound of a horn suddenly came from the convoy behind them. Sub-editor Rin started the engine in a panic. However, she didn't dare to step on the accelerator too much. She didn't drive too far. After passing through the traffic lights, she stopped at a temporary parking lot not far ahead. Ren Xiling opened the door weakly and walked out of the car. Breathing in the turbid air of the street, she felt as if she had been reborn. She was trembling a little. It was obvious that she was quite frightened. Leaning on the door, Ren Xiling lit a cigarette in a panic. She felt that she needed to calm down for a while. Long Shiruo on the roof of her car had already disappeared. She's really just an ordinary person. Looking at the reaction of Ren Xiling, who stopped in the distance, she believed in her own judgment. But she still didn't understand what Luo Dance said. Long Shiruo shook her head. Although she felt sorry for this woman, at least she didn't hurt her. She was just a little frightened. However, it was necessary for her to reject those who would fight against the demonism. Should I send her something to calm her down? Long Shiruo shrugged. She had done similar things over the years. for nearly a century. She was already familiar with it. But the moment she turned to leave, she had to stop. She didn't know when or how she let someone get close to her back, but she didn't notice at all. Even when she saw it in person, she still didn't have the feeling that there was someone behind her. Long Shirua narrowed her eyes. She finally turned around and said indifferently, "Aren't you the boss of that strange shop? What brings you here?" Luocio just looked at her quietly without speaking. Long Shirua thoughtfully glanced at the temporary parking place behind her. "It seems that the woman driving the car has something to do with your shop?" Long Shirua skillfully lit a cigarette and took a puff, saying indifferently, "Is she your customer?" Luocio still didn't speak. He didn't go far, nor did he leave directly. He just stood there quietly. Long Shirua frowned subconsciously. She couldn't figure out this guy's mind. In fact, it was only the second time that she met this guy. Of course, there were some unpleasant things that happened the last time. But in fact, this club boss who suddenly appeared in front of her gave her a feeling that he was gradually getting stronger. Unfriendly, dangerous, very dangerous. "Even if she's your customer, I didn't do anything to her." Long Shirua said indifferently, "I'm just investigating something. And as you can see, I don't mean to hurt her, right?" "Of course, she'll be fine." Luocio finally said, "I know you don't mean any harm." He said something very softly that made Long Shirua's heart beat fiercely. He said, "But if something happens to her, there will be no Long Shirua in this world. I can guarantee that. Extremely dangerous, like an abyss." Long Shirua's uneasiness had directly climbed to the level of approaching death. She instinctively moved her feet, slowly. She originally thought that she would take this step forward, but in reality, this step of hers was slightly backwards. "She is not a customer." Long Shirua paused and asked tentatively, "Who is she to you?" Finally, her words made Boss Luo take a step forward. This step seemed to directly cut the space. In one step, he was already in front of Long Shirua. "I heard that you're the last Shinryu." Luocio said indifferently, "I've heard a lot of stories when I was a child, such as Neza in the Investiture of the Gods. Have you heard of it?" Long Shirua narrowed her eyes, and her eyeballs instantly turned into fragments of gold. "Go back. It's best if you don't say anything in the end." At the moment when Long Shirua's whole body was tense, she heard such words that made her very surprised. She even prepared to have some conflict with the boss of this mysterious club. No, the conflict had already happened. This kind of spiritual collision had indeed happened, although her instinct so clearly made her understand that she needed to stay away from this guy, as far away as possible. But as a dragon, her pride and self-esteem couldn't let her escape so easily. "I'm not your customer, and you're not anyone to me." Long Shirua sneered. "Since you know what my original intention is, then you should also know that I need to investigate some dangerous things. The life of the monster race in this city is already so despicable. I don't want to see them hiding in the east and unable to live under the sun." "You don't mean any harm." Luocio shook his head and said, "From your point of view, you didn't do anything wrong. And from another point of view, this woman does need some profound lessons. She really drives too recklessly. I hope that she can improve after this. Don't you want to go back? I may not be able to control myself." "No, I already can't control myself." Luocio stretched out his hand and grabbed the air, and Long Shirua's body seemed to be out of control, as if it was directly pushed by something. When she came to her senses, her neck was already in the hands of the other party.